Naruto, starting with the reward of the Seventh Hokage. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 51. Is it really impossible? Idonin number 039, believe it. Leading the team's Jonin, Uzumaki Kushina pointed at herself. That's right, Sarutobi Hiruzen nodded. Letting Uzumaki Kushina be the team leader was not a sudden idea on his part. This was something he had decided long ago. Although Uchiha Yuichi possesses the Sharingan, he is not a member of the Uchiha clan. Apart from that, Uchiha Yuichi has a clean background and has information about his experiences from childhood to adulthood, being adopted by Yuhi Shinku, and growing up with Yuhi Shinshi's daughter is an important bond, and the most important thing is that Uchiha Yuichi is a perfect backup Jinchuriki. It's perfect, kill three birds with one stone. Not only can he appease Uzumaki Kushina, but he can also gain her favor and make Uzumaki Kushina take the initiative to teach Yuki Yuichi the sealing technique. However, the situation he expected did not occur, and Uzumaki Kushina just looked at him with a sneer. I told you to teach Yuki Yuichi now, and you told me to wait until they graduate. Is there any mistake? Uzumaki Kushina was furious. If it weren't for Minato Namikaze who was trying to hold her back, she would have jumped up and down and given Sarutobi Hiruzen a decoration plan. Calm down. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at her and sighed. The other things are easy to talk about, but he will never give in on this point. Uchiha Yuichi must bathe in the sunshine of the will of fire. This is his bottom line. This child is not only a backup Jinchuriki, he is also intended to be used to ease the relationship between the Uchiha and the village Uchiha. Sarutobi Hiruzen thought about it, sighed again, and then a strong and fierce aura emerged from his body. Other things can be discussed, but this matter cannot be discussed. He is still at the end of his peak strength period. Although his strength began to decline due to the aging of his body, his current strength has not dropped too much. He is still a ninja hero. He is still the famous ninjutsu doctor in the ninja world. Seeing his look, Namikaze Minato knew there was no room for negotiation, and immediately thanked him, then let Kushina be the leader of the team. Thank you, Hokage. As Minato Namikaze said this, he pulled Uzumaki Kushina, who wanted to fight with Sarutobi Hiruzen, away. After they left, Danzo suddenly appeared and said sinisterly to Sarutobi Hiruzen, it seems that you can't control the Jinchuriki. I said, hand her over to me and I will make her the sharpest weapon in Konoha. Humph, I can't possibly give it to you. Sarutobi Hiruzen snorted coldly. It's still daytime, stop dreaming. At this time, Uchiha Yuichi had no idea that a fight almost broke out in the Hokage's office. Because of him, the afternoon classes were simple and did not require them to move. As Ikoku Umino explained the will of fire and taught them how to read, the school bell rang. Before they knew it, the moment the bell rang, Umino Ikoku stopped and said, students who have learned to read and refine chakra can leave school now. As soon as Ikoku Umino finished speaking, almost everyone sitting in the back, except Uchiha Obito, stood up and walked out of the classroom. Uchiha Obito also wanted to leave, but seeing Nahara still sitting there and listening to the teacher attentively, he stayed. The sky is big and the earth is big, but I, Lin, am the greatest. Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai were walking in the corridor outside the classroom and could vaguely hear the sound of a lecture coming from Umino Ikoku. Ikoku Umino is a very responsible teacher. He could have let people go directly after school. After class, he has private time no matter when or in which world. Teachers who are willing to use their private time to teach students free of charge are all ethical teachers. There is no doubt about this. After school, Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai did not go home, but had a bowl of ramen at Ichiriko Ramen as dinner, and then went to the training ground on the Hokage Rock together. I must learn how to climb trees before Uncle Zhenhong comes back. Yuki Yuichi walked in front of the tree, clenched his hands, and said fiercely in his heart, if you can't do it, then I will train with Kai for a month and double the training volume. Once I got the hang of climbing a tree, I mastered it pretty quickly. Zhenhong is almost learning how to tread water. It would be embarrassing if he can't even climb a tree. Looking at Yuki Yuichi's expression, Yuhi Kurenai tilted her head. Then I will learn to tread water before Dad comes back. As she said this, she smiled and said, give him a surprise. Hey, time passed quickly, and at noon 3 days later, Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai returned home, all wet. During these 3 days, Yuki Yuichi successfully learned to climb trees, but he did not learn to tread water. On the contrary, Yuhi Kurenai learned how to tread water on the second day of practice. The reason why she is also wet now is because Yuki Yuichi fell into the water and splashed on her the moment they entered the door. Yuhi Shiku's voice reached their ears. "Why did you come back at noon?" Yuhi Shiku's voice was heard, and then he also walked over. After seeing that both of them were soaked, he was stunned at first, but didn't say anything else. "You two should go take a shower and change your clothes first." As Yuhi Shiku said this, Yuhi Kurenai nodded and trotted off to take a shower. "Actually, I can take a shower with you too." Uchiha Yuki raised his hand weakly when Yuhi Shiku heard this. Her eyes widened and she looked at him with an unfriendly look. He had no objection to Yuki Yuichi and his daughter, but that was not now, but in the future. As soon as Yuki Yuichi said this, Yuhi Shiku looked at him as if he was guarding against a thief and asked, "Why are you wet?" "We are practicing treading water." There was nothing to hide about this matter. So Uchiha Yuki told the truth. When Zihi's Henhong heard this, it was as if she had heard a joke. "Tread water? You guys start by practicing treading water? That's not okay." "Ha ha ha, of course not. We have learned to climb trees." "Ha ha ha." Zihi's Henhong's laughter stopped abruptly and she looked at him in confusion. "If I remember correctly, I just went out for a few days and learned to climb a tree without anyone's guidance." Seeing Yuhi Shiku's look, Uchiha Yuki immediately asked the questions he was confused about. "Uncle's Henhong, climbing trees and stepping on water are using the gravity and repulsion in chakra to attach oneself to the wall or water surface." Yuki Yuichi's words made Yuhi Shiku a little confused, but she still nodded. "No matter whose chakra it is, it will have the properties of gravity and repulsion, but this property is very weak and cannot be used in combat." Yuhi Shiku's words made Yuki Yuichi nod involuntarily. He also discovered in the past 2 days that the gravity and repulsion contained in chakra can only be used to assist life, at best can control some simple things, but cannot use them in combat. But, is it really not possible? Yuki Yuichi said he didn't believe it. "Please give me a monthly ticket," and read on. Chapter 52. Hehe, ha 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 ha. "It's not a big deal. At most I can try to get a template of Nagato or age spots later." Yuki Yuichi's thoughts are very real. "Try your best on your own. If that doesn't work, his cheats may be of some use." Photos of handsome young men from all over the country. Looking at Yuki Yuichi thinking with wet hair, Yuhi Shiku shook her head. He knew exactly what this kid was thinking when he was practicing climbing trees and treading water. He also thought about whether he could control these two attributes of chakra, but after his attempts, it failed without a doubt. However, he clearly did not tell this to Uchiha Yuki, so it would not be a bad idea to let him try it himself. After all, his talent for illusion was developed when he was just guessing around at that time. Even if this kid can't figure anything out, it's okay. Just consider it as teaching him a small lesson. Without saying anything else to Yuki Yuichi, Yuhi Shiku found a comfortable position for herself and lay down on the sofa. "Every time I go out on a mission it is a torture for me." Even if he didn't have to do any work when leading the team, and the mission was just a sea-level mission to clear out bandits, it was still the same. "I have to take a good rest this time." Yuhi Shiku stretched comfortably and said lazily, "The ninja's missions are not infinitely refreshed like in the game and the original novel. Class 7 only had 1 D-level tasks and C-level tasks in half a year. The Might Guy class only has 20 D-level missions and 11 C-level missions in a year and a half. When I have nothing to do, I practice on my own or go out for dinner and fun. There are only so many tasks during wartime normally. Tasks like clearing rivers and helping with harvesting are only periodic. However, in order to give some Jinan something to do, Konoha often arranges tasks such as escaping cats and dogs, and he had just led his team to complete a C-level mission, so naturally he had nothing to do just then." Yuhi Kurenai came out of the bathroom wearing new clothes. "I'm done." Hearing what Yuhi Kurenai said, Uchiha Yuki raised his head, then rushed directly to his room, got his clothes, and rushed into the bathroom. "When I came back from the training ground, my whole body was wet, but the sun was scorching on the road, and my whole body felt half dry and half wet, which was very uncomfortable." Yuhi Kurenai stared at Yuki Yuichi, who had entered the bathroom, and was stunned for a moment. Then, as if she had thought of something, she shouted inside, "I haven't flushed the toilet yet." "It's okay, I don't dislike you." Yuki Yuichi's voice came from inside. Yuhi Kurenai blushed when she heard it. "Hente." Yuki Yuichi didn't feel that the water was dirty at all. The two of them had fallen into the creek so many times, how could there be anything dirty about them? "I was just wet all over and felt uncomfortable, and it's not like we haven't taken a bath together." After a long time, Yuki Yuichi came out of the bathroom as if nothing had happened. When he saw Yuhi Kurenai sitting in the living room and talking to Yuhi Shiku about what had happened to them recently, he smiled brightly. Seeing this, Zihong's face turned red again. Her face turned red, But Yuhi's face turned dark seeing that the situation was not good. Yuchi stepped forward, grabbed Yuhi Kurenai's little hand and ran outside. A voice came from outside, "Uncle Zhenhong, we are going to school." Zihi's Zhenhong took a deep breath. This was the child she raised. So she couldn't just go up and chop him to death. As the bell rang, Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai walked into the classroom and sat in their seats. He looked around subconsciously, and when he saw Uchiha Obito was also in the classroom, Yuki Yuichi rubbed his eyes in disbelief. Poking Kakashi Hatake in front of him, he asked curiously, "Isn't Obito late, having his spine stabbed?" Hatake Kakashi turned his head to look at him, and at the same time glanced at Uchiha Obito, and said, "In order not to be late, he bought some 3-color meatballs on the roadside and packed them to eat at school." When Yuhi Kurenai heard this besides Yuki Yuichi, she was a little confused. Pack some food to eat at school so as not to be late? How afraid of being late must this be? Kurenai Yuhi thought in her heart, and at the same time remembered Uchiha Obito's characteristics, and she was immediately relieved. If this was done by someone else, she would feel confused, but if it was Uchiha Obito, she could only express her understanding. It seems that Uchiha Obito was born with some extraordinary potential. For example, being late. The afternoon class was still the boring will of fire. The brainwashing of Konoha is really hard to describe. Yuki Yuichi supported his chin with one hand and thought hurriedly in his heart that if he were to fool people, he would probably be able to fool this group of people. The ninja world is generally illiterate and paranoid, and these people are the easiest to deceive. Even the few smart people are paranoid and crazy, such as Orochimaru. The bigotry in the ninja world does not just refer to the Uchiha. The Uchiha are even more extreme because the Sharingan is prone to extremism, but paranoia is common to all ninjas as long as you find the right method. This kind of people are actually the easiest to fool. Yuki Yuichi thought about it, and then sighed with some regret. It was a pity that he would not fool such people, otherwise he would be able to thrive in the ninja world. Life is monotonous. In the morning, he practices at the training ground. In the afternoon, he is forced to undergo brainwashing at school, and in the evening, he studies with Yuhi Shinku. This kind of life lasted for 4 days. The morning sun was not very strong, and Yuki was walking on the surface of the flowing stream with a look of joy on his face. "I'm done, I've made it, young master." Yuki Yuichi covered his face with one hand and laughed loudly with his head raised. His joy reached its peak at this moment, so much so that his 1.5 Magatama Sharingan emerged unconsciously. Shigakichi, Asuma Sarutobi stood aside, all wet, looking at Yuki Yuichi with envy. His tree climbing training was complete. Asuma Sarutobi's control over chakra is still okay, but it seems that he was forced to do so before all the efforts made in the past were realized. At this moment, no matter if it was forced or not, Kakashi Hatake was also standing nearby. His body was also a little wet, but much better than Asuma Sarutobi. Only his lower body was wet. Kakashi Hatake is very talented and ranks among the best in the entire history of Konoha. He just started treading water the day before yesterday, learned to climb a tree the other day, and practiced treading water yesterday, and today looks like I have to learn it. Yuki Yuichi stood on the water and looked at them, looking arrogant and wanton. "No one is good enough compared to me." Chapter 53 Intelligence Asuma. Yuki Yuichi's words really deserved a beating, and veins bulged on Kakashi Hatake's forehead. If he was able to defeat him, I believe he would have rushed up and fought fiercely. "You little brat, being too arrogant is not good." At this moment, a voice suddenly appeared. Kakashi Hatake and Asuma Sarutobi were facing a formidable enemy and immediately assumed fighting stances instead. Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai looked at each other without much reaction. The two of them figured out who it was. Uzumaki Kushina appeared in front of the four of them, along with Namikaze Minato, who was standing beside her with a warm smile crossing her arms over her chest. Uzumaki Kushina looked at Yuki Yuichi and teased, "If an elder saw you, they would definitely say that you are a born evil kid." Yuki knew exactly who the elder that Uzumaki Kushina was talking about was. However, he did not ask any further questions. Instead, he looked at her curiously, and then looked at Minato Namikaze with a puzzled look. Compared to Uzumaki Kushina, he would rather deal with Namikaze Minato. "Brother Minato, why are you here?" Seeing that Yuki Yuichi ignored her, Uzumaki Kushina glared at Namikaze Minato, then said viciously, "What do you mean by big brother? You should call me brother-in-law." Yuki was stunned when he heard that, but he didn't remain stunned for long. He reacted instantly and said, "Brother-in-law Shuman, why are you here?" Glancing at Uzumaki Kushina, seeing that she was still looking at Yuki Yuichi viciously, Namikaze Minato pulled her helplessly. "It's your sister Kushina." Before Minato Namikaze could finish his words, Uzumaki Kushina covered his mouth. "Don't talk nonsense. As Uzumaki Kushina said this, she took out a ninjutsu scroll from her arms and threw it directly to Yuki Yuichi. I just happen to have an extra scroll of the shadow clone technique at home, so I'll just give it to you. Don't be lazy, kid. Uzumaki Kushina pretended to be fierce. If I come next time and see that you haven't learned it. As she spoke, she clenched her fist. And suddenly there was a sound of bones popping, which made Yuki Yuichi a little scared after all. When Uzumaki Kushina said she would hit someone, she really did. He looked at Minato Namikaze for help, but he shrugged helplessly, as if to say that he didn't have any good solutions. Looking at Uzumaki Kushina, Yuki Yuichi nodded silently. No matter what, I have obtained a ninjutsu. Although Yuhi Shinku might also know this ninjutsu, however, many of Konoha's ninjutsu cannot be taught privately. Yuki didn't know if the shadow clone technique was like this. Glancing at the people around her, Uzumaki Kushina nodded in satisfaction. Although you are not as good as I was back then, you are not bad either. Try hard. Uzumaki Kushina said this and used the power of instant movement to disappear from the spot. Namikaze Minato shook his head when he saw this, looked at Yuki Yuichi and said, your sister Kushina has told the Hokage that you will be assigned to her team when you graduate. She will teach you the sealing technique when the time comes. He also learned the sealing technique and knew that the difficulty of the sealing technique lies in the control of chakra. He immediately continued, so you can focus on the control of chakra in the next few years. After saying that, Minato Namikaze also disappeared from the spot. Yuki Yuichi looked at the place where Namikaze Minato disappeared, feeling confused. Even though I'm also a member of the Uzumaki clan, there's no need for Uzumaki Kushina to be so nice to me, right? He not only arranged a training ground for me, but also taught me ninjutsu. When I graduated, he would serve as my own team leader and teach me sealing techniques. This is too good to be true. In his mind, the relationship between him and Uzumaki Kushina is like that of relatives. She might protect him in Konoha, but she wouldn't be so nice to him hiding in the dark. Uzumaki Kushina looked at Namikaze Minato beside her with some complaints. Minato, why are you talking to this brat about this? You make me lose my dignity as a senior. Namikaze Minato smiled bitterly. Kushina, the sealing technique is difficult to learn. If you don't have strong chakra control abilities, then Yuichi and you will have to waste a lot of time learning. So tell him in advance and let him practice his chakra control ability first. Then you won't have to worry about his chakra control anymore. Humph. What Namikaze Minato said made sense, but Uzumaki Kushina still snorted coldly and whispered, my teaching ability is very strong. Hey, Kushina is the best, Namikaze Minato said as he rubbed Uzumaki Kushina's head with a sunny smile on his face. Uzumaki Kushina seemed to be used to it and muttered, don't do this next time. If you do this again, I will ignore you. Okay, I won't do this next time. Minato Namikaze said like he was coaxing a child, but he enjoyed it. Uzumaki Kushina chuckled, hugged his arm, and the two of them walked down the mountain and at the creek. Yuki carefully walked onto the shore on the water. Yuichi, you hit it so well, Sarutobi Asuma yelled. Namikaze Jonin is actually your brother-in-law. Hatake Kakashi looked at him in surprise. Isn't this normal? Don't you know anything about the Uzumaki clan? In the entire Konoha, only Kushina Jonin and this guy are descendants of the Uzumaki clan. Brother Minato and Jonin Kushina are boyfriend and girlfriend. Isn't it normal for them to have a relationship? Huh? Sarutobi Asuma looked at him in disbelief. But Yuichi's last name isn't Uzumaki. He knew about the Uzumaki clan. This is a distant relative of the Senju clan and has a very good relationship with Konoha. Moreover, they are a very powerful ninja clan. One clan is like a country, which shows how powerful they are. It's a pity that their entire clan was exterminated. It is said that the Hidden Mist Village and others jointly launched a surprise attack, and Konoha was too late to provide support. Idiot. Hatake Kakashi glanced at him and stopped talking, but continued to practice treading water. Dark Kakashi, what do you mean? Asuma Sarutobi asked, unconvinced. He was extremely dissatisfied. Why did he say he was an idiot? Yuki Yuichi said as he looked at the scroll nearby. My red hair is actually the proof. In the ninja world, red hair is basically only found in the Uzumaki clan, and Minato is great. Yuki Yuichi paused and changed his words, and the relationship between Minato's brother-in-law and Kushina's sister is public. It's easy to relate to one of them. Unless you don't investigate intelligence at all, you will know it. Asuma Sarutobi was silent. Yuki was right. He really didn't investigate the intelligence after a long while. Sarutobi Asuma clenched his fist and said, how can I repair it? I also want to be an intelligence ninja. Hearing this, Yuki Yuichi raised his head, looked at him and smiled. Yeah, intelligence Asuma, come on, update in advance, and try to update at 8 o'clock in the future. If there is no update at 8 o'clock, then it will be updated at 11:50. It will only be updated during these two time periods. Please follow and vote. Chapter 54. Have you found your jade? As a ninja, what is the most important thing besides strength, intelligence, assassination, sneak into? Neither. As a ninja, the most important thing is to find the jade in your heart. Asuma, you are going the wrong way. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at his busy son and felt mixed emotions. I want to say it but I can't. He and Asuma Sarutobi didn't have a good relationship, so he felt that Asuma Sarutobi wouldn't listen to him. I hope you can understand the true meaning of jade as soon as possible. Sarutobi Hiruzen looked at Sarutobi Asuma and sighed, thinking silently in his heart. Asuma Sarutobi looked at the information he had collected in his free time and smiled with satisfaction. He is Asuma Sarutobi. From this moment on, he will become an intelligence ninja. Every afternoon after school is study time. However, today, Yuhi Shinku did not explain to them the principles of various ninjutsu, but instead took the scroll of shadow clone technique that Uzumaki Kushina gave to Yuki Yuichi. Touching his chin, Zihi's Henhong looked at the words for a long time, and then said, "Shadow clone is a good thing. I was thinking of teaching you after a while," Yuhi Shinku said, looking at Yuhi Kurenai, and said, "As for Kurenai, you need to continue to practice your chakra control ability. You don't have enough chakra, and your body doesn't recover fast enough. Although the shadow clone technique can assist in your training, it can easily have the opposite effect, so don't learn it now." Yuhi Kurenai's chakra control ability is very strong. Yuhi Shinku naturally knew this, but the shadow clone technique was very difficult to learn. The level of a ninjutsu refers to the difficulty of learning the technique, and the shadow clone technique is, at best, a B-level ninjutsu, which is not easy to learn. Although learning this ninjutsu can make many learning tasks more efficient, it is still too early for Kurenai Yuhi to learn this ninjutsu. B-level ninjutsu represents chunin. Instead of wasting a lot of time learning this ninjutsu, it would be better for Kurenai Yuhi to improve her chakra control ability this way. At least you can learn a few more illusions in a short period of time. Yuhi Shiku's expectation for Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai is to save their lives. As long as you can save your life, everything is fine. Yuki Yuichi looked at him and nodded. The shadow clone has many uses. Although the learning process is difficult, he believes in himself. At the same time, he thought of something. The template of the young Seventh Hokage that he got at the beginning. The clone's heavy attack should have been created by the shadow clone technique, but its performance was the same as that of an ordinary clone. Only when using skills will this clone turn into a shadow clone and hit the opponent hard. It's so fucking abstract. This template doesn't give you any advantage at all. If this was a normal skill, it would be fine. I could also use the ability of this clone to transform between reality and illusion to be the boss, but this is a Schrödinger clone. Yuki had used it secretly several times while hiding in the room, and most of the time he summoned a failed clone that was limp and had a sticking up. But he couldn't imagine how terrible the scene would be if he suddenly did this in the middle of a battle and his opponent saw him summon an avatar with its butt facing him, so he didn't even dare to use this skill. As Yuki Yuichi was thinking, Yuhi Shiku's explanation reached his ears. The shadow clone technique is an advanced ninjutsu created by the second Hokage. It can allow the clone to have a physical body, but the chakra will be evenly distributed to each clone. As Yuhi Shiku said this, he formed seals with his hands and a shadow clone appeared beside him. The shadow clone took over his work and picked up the cup from the table. This is the shadow clone. The power of the shadow clone is that it cannot be seen through by the Byakugan or other sensory ninjutsu. However, the shadow clone cannot be attacked. As the shadow clone was speaking, Zihi's Henhong beside him suddenly punched out and directly blew him up, and then continued to explain as if nothing had happened. After the shadow clone disappears, his memories of this period will emerge in your mind. Yuki Yuichi sat in a chair and listened quietly. He knew the function of shadow clone. Although this ninjutsu is used to lurk and gather intelligence, it was better used for practice. After the shadow clone disappears, the memory will be transferred back to the original body, which means that this ninjutsu is an experience-generating technique. Although it cannot deepen muscle memory, it can practice and develop ninjutsu. In Yuki's opinion, this is the correct way to use the shadow clone technique. Yuhi Shiku didn't know what Yuki Yuichi was thinking, and she was still explaining the characteristics of this ninjutsu and how to learn it. Although Yuki knew the characteristics of the shadow clone technique, he still listened quietly. Zihi Kurenai was also blinking her big eyes and listening curiously. Although her old father told her to focus on learning illusion, she was also very curious about this ninjutsu. Following Yuhi Shiku's explanation, Yuki gradually understood how to practice this ninjutsu. The next day Yuhi Kurenai sneaked into Yuki Yuichi's room, pushed him with her hand, and at the same time carefully looked in the direction of the door, whispered, "Yuichi, wake up." Yuki Yuichi slowly opened his eyes, rubbed them, and yawned. "Hong, the alarm didn't ring. Why did you call me so early?" He was puzzled because usually when Zairi Hong called him to wake up, she would come after the alarm clock rang. Yuki Yuichi thought about it and glanced at the alarm clock next to him. It was still an hour before his usual wake-up time. Hearing his words, Zairi Hong became a little nervous and looked outside the door from time to time, as if there was a flood or a beast. "Yuichi, let's go train." Yuhi Shinku talked a lot last night. It not only talks about the practice of shadow clone technique, but also the training of chakra. This is his own conclusion, and the entire Konoha, the only ones who can compete with Yuhi Shinku in terms of illusion are Uchiha and Kurama. Jinjutsu Jonin is not fake. Yuhi Shinku has her own training method now. He handed this method over to Yuhi Kurenai and Yuki Yuichi. After hearing what Yuhi Kurenai said, Yuki looked at the alarm clock again, hesitated for a moment, and nodded. He actually wanted to sleep a little longer, but the thought was immediately extinguished when I saw the alarm clock. Taking a nap now will only make me more sleepy. Seeing Yuichi agree, Yuhi Kurenai smiled sweetly and immediately went forward to hug him. "I knew Yuchi-kun was the best." Feeling the fragrance coming from Yuhi Kurenai, you spoke up subconsciously, "It smells so good." When Yuhi Kurenai heard this, her face immediately turned red with embarrassment. She let go of Yuki Yuichi, said, "I'm leaving first," and left. Looking at Yuhi Kurenai who was leaving, Yuki Yuichi smiled. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 55. I and number 039, am going to go fishing with him. For the next period of time, Yuki's main purpose was to practice the shadow clone technique. His talent was not bad. He could climb trees and tread water only because of the huge amount of chakra he had. He had some trouble controlling it, but it's just that the control is not good enough. After all, there is no existence like the nine-tailed fox in his body to interfere. His chakra amount was inherited from the Uzumaki clan, huge and full of vitality. The Uzumaki clan's chakra control ability is not weak. The Uzumaki clan's specialty is the sealing technique, and the ability to control chakra is very high. When performing the sealing technique, controlling huge amounts of chakra may be difficult at first, but as he completed the training of climbing trees and treading water, Yuki's chakra control ability increased significantly. "One day my chakra will be comparable to that of the tailed beasts," Yuki thought silently in his heart. He has this confidence. Yuhi Kurenai was practicing the fire dragon technique beside him. Both Yuki and Yuhi Kurenai have already learned this ninjutsu, but Yuhi Kurenai later practiced climbing trees and walking on water, and is not yet very proficient in this ninjutsu with the chakra control method taught to her by Yuhi Shinku. Yuhi Shinku couldn't wait to practice it. Yuhi Shinku's chakra control method is not difficult at all. There is only one sentence. Control the chakra in your body and reduce the chakra as much as possible when releasing ninjutsu. Manipulating chakra in a body to perform ninjutsu can also exercise control ability. Generally speaking, when a ninja uses ninjutsu, he usually uses more chakra. This is a subconscious action. What Kurenai has to do is to control the chakra in her body. While practicing the dragon fire technique, he trained in both chakra manipulation and dragon fire techniques. Kill two birds with one stone. Yuki glanced at Kurenai, and then began to concentrate on practicing the shadow clone technique. The seal for this technique is very simple. Wei Si Yin. There are only 3 short seals. Yuki took a deep breath and formed hand seals slowly. Then he shouted, "Shadow clone technique." As the smoke rose, 8 clones exactly like Yuki appeared around him. "I am indeed a genius, of course. I succeeded in one try. If I'm not a genius, who is claiming to be invincible? Which one?" "Shut up, aren't you embarrassed to say this every day?" "Then let's just say this, give me some face, red hair." The shadow clones were discussing at once. Yuki was delighted at first, feeling proud that Uzumaki Naruto had learned how to create multiple shadow clones in less than one night. Yuki learned the shadow clone technique in one day. That's not too much, right? Just when he was feeling proud, the voices of the shadow clones discussing with each other reached his ears. Hearing these words, veins bulged on Yuki's forehead. He should be very happy that he could summon 8 shadow clones at once, but he was very unhappy about these clones. The clone created by the shadow clone technique will have the subconscious personality of the original body. In other words, The personality of the shadow clone is the true personality of the original body because you don't have to worry about death or anything like that. Your true nature is revealed therefore. Sometimes a person's character can be seen through the performance of his shadow clone. Looking at these shadow clones, Yuchi cancelled the clones and then fell into deep thought. Which step went wrong? It actually changed the personality of the shadow clone. He would rather believe that he made a mistake than admit his true character. Just as he was deep in thought, Hokage Kakashi and the others arrived. Seeing Yuki Yuichi, Uchiha Madara complained, "You are really annoying. You didn't even go to school and made us wait for you for so long." Uchiha Madara's words were very beautiful. But Yuki Yuichi understood him and immediately exposed him. "You? Wait for me, of course," Uchiha Madara said without blinking. "You don't know how long we have been waiting for you, really?" Yuichi looked at him and gave him a polite smile. "I don't believe it, you?" Uchiha Madara wanted to say something, but Sarutobi Asuma pulled him back. "It's shameful, really shameful. Everyone here, who doesn't know that you, Uchiha Madara, have never arrived at school on time." Uchiha Madara was still struggling, but Sarutobi Asuma held him tightly. Hokage Kakashi looked at Yuki Yuichi curiously. "You two aren't going to school. The teacher doesn't care about us anyway, so it's okay not to go." Yuki has observed this over the past 2 days. Hokage Kakashi, looking at the indifferent Yuki Yuichi, his fists hardened. He resisted the urge to step forward and asked, "Then why didn't you tell us?" Seeing his look, Yuki Yuichi shook his head and pretended to be sad and said, "Those who are willing do not need to be taught, and those who are not willing cannot be taught." "Kakashi, you don't understand me at all. How would I understand if you don't tell me?" Veins bulged on Kakashi Hotake's forehead. "You should understand even if I don't tell you. I only understood after you said it." "Okay then." Yuki Yuichi shrugged. "We went to school these past 2 days but left without seeing the teacher, and the teacher never looked for us. From this we can see that the teacher doesn't really care whether we go to school in the morning or not." "Kakashi." Yuki Yuichi said his name with a sigh. "You still need to practice." Hokage Kakashi said he didn't want to continue talking to him. He walked to the cabinet where ninja tools were kept and took out a wooden sword. He walked to the wooden stake and started swinging the sword. The dull thud of wooden swords and wooden stakes echoed regularly in the training ground. Kakashi Hokage seemed to treat the wooden stake in front of him as Yuki. He did not hold back in every strike and used all his strength in every strike. My guy scratched his head and ran off to train alone. The same is true for Uchiha Madara and Sarutobi Asuma. Suddenly, the training ground was divided into 4 areas. The area where Kakashi Hokage practices swordsmanship, the area where my guy practices physical skills, and the area where Kurenai Yuhi and Uchiha Madara practice ninjutsu. And Yuki, who has nothing to do. In the end he was in stark contrast to the others. Seeing everyone working hard, Yuki took a deep breath and thought, "I have to work hard too. It took me so many years of hard work to get to where I am now. We can't let them catch up." Thinking in his mind, Yuki slowly made hand signals as the smoke rose. 4 shadow clones appeared before his eyes. "Understand me?" "I don't understand." The shadow clone shook his head. "You have to understand even if you don't understand." Yuki ignored their thoughts. Although the shadow clone has its own consciousness, it is essentially still him. He is the original body and has absolute control over the shadow clone, but it's generally not used. Pointing at a shadow clone, Yuki said, "Do you understand the development of fire style?" "I understand." Shadow's eyes sparkled. "Back then, I planted a Buddha's wrath lotus in his soul." The corner of Yuki's mouth twitched. "Do you think I haven't seen fights break sphere?" After sending the first shadow clone away, Yuki looked at the second shadow clone. "I'm going to develop Chidori. I'm going to go fishing with him to develop Chidori. P.S. Please vote for my new book and keep reading it. The proportion of monthly tickets during the new book period is still very large. Please help Kak. I have decided to recommend the follow-up readings for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and I also want to ask for a follow-up reading." Chapter 56. We all have a bright future. Each shadow clone has a mission. UN number 1, go develop fire style, and they will study Chidori. Yuki patted the shoulder of shadow clone number 4. "We all have a bright future." The 4th shadow clone glanced at Yuki with a look of contempt on his face. "I am you. I don't need you to make big promises for me. You will regret it sooner or later." Shadow clone number 4 snorted coldly and turned to walk towards shadow clone number 1, looking at the back of the 4th shadow clone leaving. Yuki touched his head. After a long while, he managed to utter, "I am the real body, Chidori's research isn't really research, but the emergence of this ninjutsu requires a reasonable reason, and his lightning attribute chakra is the reason. It makes sense to develop an A-level lightning ninjutsu by accident, right? Yuchi thought it was reasonable when he returned home yesterday and handed over the shadow clone technique to Yuhi Shinku. He also told her about Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki. After hearing this, Zihi's Henhung just looked at him and said, "Let me ask you, if a person's entire family died, then a person lived somewhere else, but one day, a child of the same race as him appears, what do you think will happen?" When he heard this, Yuki Yuichi didn't even think twice and answered directly, "Of course I feel a sense of familiarity." After saying this, Yuki Yuichi reacted, but Zairi Jianhong just smiled and said nothing. Uzumaki Kushina had no ill will towards him, and was even full of kindness towards him. This was also the reason why Uzumaki Kushina asked him to call Minato brother in law. Yesterday she treats Yuki Yuichi as her younger brother. It seems like it wouldn't be bad to have a sister like this. Yuki Yuichi thought silently in his heart. Uzumaki Kushina, the second-generation Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, the wife of the fourth Hokage, the mother of the seventh Hokage, and the distant relative of the fifth Hokage in Konoha. She is like a nuclear weapon. As a nuclear weapon with thoughts, Uzumaki Kushina has great deterrent power. In addition, there's Minato Namikaze and Shinku. Yuhi will also support herself. This power is great enough to protect himself in Konoha and even make him a devil. So, in this case, the fact that he is a genius does not need to be concealed. Yuki thought shamelessly that in his heart, he was an unparalleled genius. Since the shadow clone is working hard, Yuki Yuichi naturally won't be lazy. Minato Namikaze told him yesterday that Uzumaki Kushina would be his mentor and team leader, and would also teach him sealing techniques. Therefore, he needs to train his chakra control ability. Yuki Yuichi thought about it and formed seals with his hands. The next moment, shadow clones number 5 and number 6 appeared. "I'll leave the chakra control training to you two. Do a good job. I won't treat you unfairly." Yuki patted the shoulders of his two shadow clones. "How can it be repaired? What a lazy entity." The two shadow clones glared at him, but Yuki Yuichi didn't care. What's wrong with being looked at a few more times? Under his control, the two shadow clones obediently practiced their chakra control ability. 6 shadow clones, 2 in a group, 2 in charge of fire escape, 2 in charge of Chidori development, 2 in charge of training chakra control ability. The years are peaceful, but someone is carrying the burden forward in the world of Naruto. You can't become a superior person by enduring hardships, but you can eat other people even if these people are their own shadow clones. Achievement, cannibalism. When I get ruthless, I even exploit myself. In this world, ruthlessness is the key to survival. Are you going to do it? If you don't, there are plenty of shadow clones who will do it. Reward, spiritual communication, Fire Crow. Yuki looked at the azure light curtain in front of him and suddenly had several question marks in his mind. What the hell is this Fire Crow? He thought that he might be able to obtain a spirit beast through achievements, but what he wanted was a panda. He really wanted to know what the scene would be like when the tyrannical panda was used as a spiritualist. As a result, the achievement reward was not given to Panda himself, and he had never even heard of this psychic beast. I don't think it could be in the game, but this summoned beast sounds very powerful. As Yuki thought about it, his personal panel appeared in front of him. Achievements, childhood sweethearts, lifelong rivals, the beginning of ninja, punching in at a Chiraku ramen, a Brito's promise, I can do whatever I want, cannibalism, rewards, Uzumaki Naruto, ninja student, ninja technique, defense level 2, Hiruno Sakura, Shippuden, Uchiha Sasuke, Sharingan, ninja technique, rage, summoning technique, Fire Crow, title, ninja student, already worn, special reward, Vodex bloodline. Looking at the panel, Yuki also felt a dark space appear in his mind. With a spiritual scroll floating in it, he glanced at the others and didn't take it out. If a psychic scroll appeared now, it would be difficult to explain. Just when he stopped looking at his personal panel and focused his attention on the scroll in the dark space, a message appeared in his mind, telling him that he had successfully signed a psychic contract with a Fire Crow. At the same time, there was a pulling call in Yuki's heart, but it was not strong. Yuki felt that if he wanted to, he could be summoned by the reverse spirit. The information in his mind made him completely unable to contain himself. Looking around, he walked towards the depths of the forest. The 6 shadow clones looked up at him. The duo of shadow clones who were slacking off were sitting on the ground with their backs against a tree trunk. Hey, what the hell is this idiot doing? I don't know. This guy is really embarrassing our shadow clone. That's right. We developed Chidori in such a short time, but there is no reward yet. I have never seen such an incompetent entity." As soon as he said this, the shadow clone next to him looked at him in surprise. They all came from the same body, so why was the guy next to him so shameless? But he likes it so much. Yuki still doesn't know what the shadow clone thinks of him. "Let's stop here." Looking around, Yuki Yuichi said to himself, then responded to the call from the unknown, and turned into a wisp of white smoke and disappeared on the spot. The tribe lives in one of the 3 southern mountains, called the Red Flame Mountain. On top, there are many black rocks burning with fire, and below, there are many fire creatures. It is 200 miles wide. There is a beast with red flames around its body. It looks like a crow with 3 legs. Its black feathers turn into gold, and it speaks human language. It is called a fire crow. Eating it can strengthen the yang fire. Where did this come from for me? Looking at the stone tablet in front of him, Yuki felt a little confused. What's going on with this full sense of deja vu from the classic of mountains and seas? Just when he was puzzled, a cry suddenly appeared in the sky. Chapter 57 Natural Energy. The fire crow is very large. Just standing here, it is 7 or 8 meters tall. Yuki Yuichi looks insignificant in front of it. "Are you the contractor of my tribe?" The moment fire crow opens his mouth, he sounds like an old-timer. Seeing his look, Yuki couldn't help swallowing and nodded before seeing the fire crow. He thought it was the normal size of a crow, but it would have some strange behaviors as a result. The appearance of the fire crow completely overturned his own inherent worldview. Can a crow grow so big? The 3-legged fire crow is also a crow, so it is not an exaggeration to add the word crow. "I am the crow immortal. I am the master of this place." The crow immortal's voice was a little rough. Then he pointed at the stone tablet with one wing with a proud look on his face. "This is the symbol of our clan, something that has been passed down from a long time ago." Yuki followed its wings, looked at the stone tablet again, read it again in his mind, and finally his eyes stopped on the last few words. "Eating it can strengthen the yang fire. You call this a stone tablet?" Yuki Yuichi couldn't help but complain in his heart. "Isn't this a recipe?" At this moment, Yuki felt that the surroundings were getting hotter and there were a few bird calls in the sky at the same time. There was a yeah sound. Looking up, I saw a sea of fire in the sky, heading towards me. As the sea of fire got closer, Yuki Yuichi felt hotter and hotter, and fine beads of sweat began to seep out of his forehead. The crow immortal seemed to sense his discomfort and cursed him immediately. "What a bastard! Everyone, just shut up. This is our contractor." Crow immortal was still furious. As the crow immortal finished speaking, the sea of fire in the sky suddenly dissipated, and was replaced by a dark mass filled with 3-legged fire crows. Unlike the crow immortal, these fire crows are the size of normal crows, but unlike ordinary crows, they have 3 claws. The color on its body looks similar to flames, but some of them are not covered too much. It seems that this color depends on the strength of the fire crow. 3-legged fire crow. A large group of fire crows landed around Yuki Yuichi and Crow Hermit. The leading fire crow raised its head and looked at Crow Hermit. "Brother, this guy is skinny and has no natural energy in his body. Can he lead us out to fight?" "Of course can." The crow immortal smiled cheerfully. "This is our contractor." As he spoke, Crow immortal pointed at the stone tablet and said, "These are the words that were passed down together with the stone tablet. One day, the red-haired boy will lead our fire crow clan to fight on the battlefield." Crow Hermit said this without question, and looked at Yuki Yuichi again. "I've been waiting for this day. Yuki Yuichi, you are not from the Fire Crow clan, you are gangsters. And what does it mean that a red-haired boy will lead you to fight on the battlefield?" Yuki Yuichi was a little nervous. He is not Uzumaki Naruto. Isn't this the prophecy of that big toad sage? The blue-eyed boy laughed and called out the names of the 9 beasts, just tampering with a few words and treating it as a new prophecy. Although it was a bit difficult, Yuki Yuichi still asked curiously, "Crow Hermit, is your ability to control fire?" Upon hearing this, the Crow Immortal took off on the spot, flapped his wings, and used the 3rd claw between his 2 claws to grab a piece of black rock, a local specialty, and crushed it into powder. The voice was loud and majestic. "The Fire Crow clan has hard and sharp beaks, sharp and powerful claws, sharp and hard wings, and powerful fire escape. So, go fight. The Fire Crow will obey your orders." After the Crow Immortal finished speaking, he flew away into the distance. Yuki was silent for a moment as he watched the Fire Crow sage going away. At this moment, the Fire Crow that had just spoken to the Crow sage flew onto his shoulder. "My name is Diao. Don't worry about what Big Brother said before, prophecy, conquest and all that. He's crazy. If you need anything, you can channel me or other Fire Crows. We can fight for you if you need us to. The voice of the big crow is a female voice, much gentler than that of the crow immortal. Looking at the crow standing on his shoulder, Yuchi took a deep breath and looked at the stone tablet before he could say anything. The crow started to explain. You probably want to ask about the stone tablet, right? The last words on the stone tablet. Yuchi felt a little embarrassed. Asking such a thing in front of others was a bit embarrassing even for him. The crow said nonchalantly, this is a stone tablet that was passed down a long time ago. It is said to record where we came from, but it's of no use. As for the last paragraph, the crow's voice became a little strange. This was written by my elder brother himself. I originally wanted to write, eating it strengthens the yang fire, burning it will kill you, but the rest of the space is too small to carve. Yuki Yuichi, good guy, he carved a recipe for himself. Oya has a very gentle personality and answered whatever Yuki Yuichi asked. 2.5 hours later, Yuki also understood the situation of the Fire Crow clan. I also know what this place is. This is a different dimension independent of the ninja world. It's the same as Myabakuzen, Raichi Cave, and the Wetbone Forest. These three holy places are actually different dimensions. The same is true for the Fire Crow clan. The only difference is that it is different from the three holy places and has connections with the outside world. The Fire Crow clan has absolutely no connection, and this different space is not particularly large. The stone tablet also says that it is 200 li wide, which is about 100 kilometers. If you say it is small, it is not small, but if you say it is big, it is not big either. The Fire Crows have been living in this strange space, feeding on the black rocks on the ground. In addition, Yuki also learned about the strength of Fire Crow. It was pretty much the same as what I guessed. Their strength was calculated based on the amount of gold on their bodies. The more gold covers the body, the stronger the strength, and similarly, the higher the status. After learning all this from Diao, Yuki stood up and prepared to leave, but at this moment, the crow tilted its head as if it had thought of something, and said, it seems that you humans can also learn our abilities. Yuki looked at the crow in surprise, then she looked at him in surprise. Didn't I say that at the beginning? You don't even have natural energy. It's impossible to take us to fight. Although I was trying to coax my eldest brother, I wasn't actually lying. You are really weak, without any natural energy at all. Natural energy. Yuki's eyes lit up. You mean, I can learn this from you? The crow looked at him and nodded. After a long moment, it can be combined with another energy in your body. Chapter 58 IN number 039, am going to be rich. What Dayu said made Yuki a little confused when he heard about natural energy. He thought he could directly learn about natural energy. Seeing that he didn't seem to understand, the crow jumped on his head and said, the natural energy absorbed by our Fire Crow clan is very violent. It belongs to the power of fire. If you absorb it directly, you will have indigestion. However, you have a different energy within you that can be used to neutralize it. As he spoke, the crow tilted his head, and at the same time looked down at Yuki, who was used as a stepping stone by him. The natural energy cultivated in this situation is probably a little weaker than our natural energy, but it may also produce a strange fusion with your original energy. Dao's words are very clear, that is, you can cultivate natural energy, but I can't guarantee what will happen. And Yuki fell into deep thought. This stuff sounds so familiar. The energy in your body, what energy do you have? Isn't it just chakra? A combination of natural energy and chakra? Isn't this the sage mode? Thinking of this, Yuki became excited. Big Crow, I want to learn. No, you don't want to. The crow shook his head. Your roots are not strong enough. You are still very weak now, Daya said, and pondered in his heart for a while, trying to comfort Yuki. With your current physical strength, once you absorb natural energy, you will directly combust from the inside out. The crow called twice, flapped its wings, flew over his head, and circled in the air. The originally half-black and half-red color of his body suddenly turned into fiery red, and at the same time wisps of flame seeped out. In just a moment, the crow went from being harmless, with an appearance no different from that of an ordinary crow except for its third claw, to a fire crow circling in the air with flames burning. The crow was not flying very high, but Yuki could still feel a slight heat from it. Needless to say, the crow's body temperature is very high now. Fire style, feather scattering technique. Under Yuki's gaze, the crow did not make any unnecessary movements, but the flames on its body turned into feathers and shot towards the ground. The crow's feather dispersion technique lasted for more than 10 seconds, and only after it ended did Yuki see the situation on the ground clearly. The black rock, which originally looked ordinary and looked like a pile of rocks, was now covered with dense holes. Yuki could also see white smoke rising above the hole at first glance. You can tell that this is caused by high temperature burning. The crow also retracted the flames at this time, and turned back into its previous harmless appearance, standing on top of Yuki Yuichi's head. See it? This is the natural energy we practice. It is an ability that belongs exclusively to our Fire Crow clan. You can learn it, but you can only neutralize it with the ability in your body. In addition, you also need to have a strong physique. Yuki Yuichi took a deep breath. He wants to learn this Sage mode. Originally, he thought that after learning Shadow Clone, he could slack off. After all, the goal he set for himself was to be a ninjutsu-type ninja, so it would be enough for him to have sufficient physical strength. So, after learning Shadow Clone, he thought about learning Shadow Clone, but now, he also has to focus on his physical fitness. The Shadow Clone only learns experience and does not increase his physical strength. It can be used to learn and develop ninjutsu, but it cannot be used for physical exercise. He continued to communicate with the Big Crow, and during the communication, Yuki also completely understood what level the Crow Immortal belonged to. The Crow Immortal was the most powerful Fire Crow of the Fire Crow clan, and you could tell by its size. And because I was bored, I kept sleeping. In addition to cultivating natural energy, some Fire Crows also cultivate their own physical strength. Although these Fire Crows also know natural energy, they do not have a high level of mastery. However, they are very strong and large in size. The Fire Crows that specialize in natural energy are not much different from normal-sized crows. It just looks better and has an extra claw. It is said that we can evolve. When Yuki Yuichi was about to leave, die outside, however, this is just a legend that has been passed down from ancient times, but many tribesmen are working hard to evolve. As the crow spoke, it used its beak to peck at the hard black rock on the ground, making crisp sounds, which made Yuki's eyes twitch. He just discovered that the black rock on the ground was very hard. He secretly used a kunai to mark the ground, but only left a white mark. The raven, on the other hand, could hit them one at a time with ease. He could no longer imagine how hard and sharp the raven's beak was. The crow didn't know what Yuki Yuichi was thinking, and it continued, I specialize in natural energy, hoping to use it to evolve, while those wild men are cultivating their physiques, hoping to use their strong physiques to drive their bloodlines and thus evolve. However, it seems that they have lost their brains while training their bodies, and they can no longer speak, but even so, they are still very powerful, but their brains may not be very good. If you use your spirit to send them to fight, remember not to say anything too confusing, otherwise these fools won't understand. After hearing what Crow said, Yuki thought of his few memories. It seems that Orochimaru's Raichi cave can also evolve. It seems to be a dragon. What is the evolution of the Fire Crow clan? Thinking about it, Yuki asked directly, if you could evolve, what would you evolve into? I don't know. Big Crow shook his head, indicating that he didn't know either. After all, no one has ever evolved, not even Big Brother. It's just a legend, but it's still very credible, Daya said, looking at Yuki. After all, the prophecy has come true. Upon hearing this, Yuki twitched a corner of his mouth and asked, are you really sure that this is not a drug given to your Fire Crow clan by the system? Then do you want me to tell you something for your reference? Yuki looked at the crow pecking at the black rock on the ground. His eyes fell on his middle claw. Hearing this, the crow looked at him curiously. Not knowing what he was thinking of, he said, there's no need for this kind of thing, but you can make a guess. You are the one who prophesied. After all, I have read an ancient legend before. The Venerable One in the Flame represents the golden crow of the sun god. What does this have to do with us? Hearing what Yuki said, Daiao tilted his head and looked at him. The golden crow is also known as the three-legged golden crow, and was born in the sun. You can take a look at it, Yuki said, smiled at it, then clasped his hands together and prepared to leave. The crow tilted its head, then looked down at its half-body that had turned golden, and fell into deep thought. After a long while, he sighed, as expected of the person predicted by the legend, I'm going to be rich. Chapter 59 radiates vitality. When Yuki Yuichi was around, she suppressed her nature and remained gentle, but now that Yuki Yuichi is leaving, she has recovered. I must become a three-legged golden crow, the crow thought to himself as his whole body started to burn with flames and he flew into the air. All of you, fly up. Yes, big sister. With Dao's words, the red flame mountain, which had been shut down because of Yuki Yuichi, began to exude vitality again. The flames that had been dormant began to burn again. The fire crows were bathed in flames and gathered into a ball to form a sea of fire in the air. Wherever they passed, It seemed to have triggered a chain reaction, and orange-red flames appeared on the ground. A desolate Chigain mountain has changed its appearance at this time. Crow Immortal looked at this scene and curled his lips. I am here to help you. If the contractor couldn't withstand the high temperature here, is it your turn to show off? Yuchi, who was back at the training ground on the Hokage Rock, stroked his chin and asked, did the change of Crow be so great? The moment he disappeared, he seemed to hear the voice of the crow, and at the same time he seemed to see her soaring into the sky. Yuchi thought about it and shook his head. Impossible, absolutely impossible. How could such a gentle crow call herself old lady? Thinking of this, Yuchi walked towards the training ground. Seeing Yuchi appear, the 8 shadow clones looked at him resentfully, while Kurenai walked up to him and looked at him with concern. Yuchi, where have you been? Why have you been gone so long? Seeing Kurenai's worried eyes, Yuchi smiled and said, I went to the forest to take a look, wonder what's around here. Then do you know what's around here? Hokage Kakashi also came over and looked at him curiously. He only knew that there was a river around the training ground, and he didn't know anything else. Yuchi heard this and shook his head. They're all trees, it seems there's nothing else. Of course, Asuma Sarutobi, Uchiha Obito and Might Guy also came over at this time. Sarutobi Asuma glanced at everyone and said, when I was secretly playing in the old man's office, I saw some records about Konoha. Konoha is surrounded by a forest, and there is only one road leading to the outside at the village gate. You know this, right? Asuma Sarutobi said, looking at everyone. Yuchi and others nodded. Rather than saying that Konoha was surrounded by forests, it would be better to say that Konoha was built in the forest. I'm telling you something in secret. Sarutobi Asuma looked around and finally lowered his voice carefully. According to the records in the old man's office, the forest around Konoha was created by the first Hokage. Impossible. Uchiha Obito was full of disbelief. Even the Sandaime, who is known as the strongest Hokage, doesn't have such a strong power. Humph. Asuma Sarutobi snorted when he heard that. He is a shitty strongest Hokage. Sarutobi Asuma was made up of 50 kilograms of rebellious bones and 50 kilograms of flesh and blood. He said without hesitation, the information I'm looking at is top secret. The first Hokage, Senju Hashirama, and your Uchiha ancestor, Uchiha Madara, joined forces during the Warring States period. One is called the God of Ninja, and the other is called the Shura of the Ninja world. My old man can tell at a glance that he is just bragging. How shameless. Yuchi, and Kakashi Hatake looked at each other, then looked at Asuma Sarutobi strangely. Good boy, the third Hokage is blessed to have a son like you. Kurenai scratched her head and said, it's not nice for us to say this about Hokage, isn't it? I told you. I told you, Asuma Sarutobi said in a huff. That's right. You're obviously not as good as the previous Hokage, but you have to brag. Even the thick-skinned Might Guy couldn't stand it anymore and abruptly changed the subject. Shall we go eat? I'm hungry. After hearing what Might Guy said, Yuchi realized that it was already noon. Almost 4 hours had passed since he had just arrived at Chigain Mountain, and it was almost time for dinner. After taking a look at the shadow clones who were still practicing hard, Yuchi immediately announced that he would give them a holiday before disappearing. The shadow clone angrily called him shameless as the 8 shadow clones disappeared. 8 completely different memories merged into his original body. Yuchi was originally fine, but he stumbled and almost fell, but Kurenai was quick enough to catch him. Yuchi, are you okay? Looking at Yuchi's pale face, Kurenai asked worriedly, I'll ask the teacher for leave this afternoon, so you don't have to go to class. At this time, Yuchi only felt dizzy, and 3 phantoms of Kurenai appeared. Oh my god, there are only 8 shadow clones, 2 of which are just slacking off, and they can't even handle this. He really couldn't continue to go to class in his current state, so he nodded, suppressed his mental discomfort, and said, that's it. Please tell the teacher that I am dead because of using 8 shadow clones. Hearing his words, Hatake Kakashi and the others twitched their lips, knowing that his logic was no longer clear. Hong, please send him back first. Kakashi Hatake looked at Yuchi. He knew the side effects of shadow clones for most people. 1 or 2 is the limit, so when he saw Yuchi create 8 shadow clones in the morning, he thought this guy was much stronger than him. It turned out to be a silver pewter gun tip. Yuchi was taken back in a daze by Kurenai. At the same time, he was still wondering why Uzumaki Naruto could create so many shadow clones. This stuff is poisonous. Yuhi Shinku was watering the flowers, and then she saw Yuchi being supported by Kurenai. Her face changed immediately, and she thought he had been hit by someone. What's up with him? Kurenai supported Yuchi with some concern. Yuichi created several shadow clones, and it became like this after they were removed. Upon hearing this, Yuhi Shinku frowned and moved closer to Yuki Yuichi, looked at him for a while, and then breathed a sigh of relief. He's fine. A lot of memories came back at once, and some of them were too much to handle. After hearing what Yuhi Shinku said, Yuhi Kurenai was obviously relieved. Who scared me? Zihi Kurenai pouted. If Yaoichi does this again, I will ignore him. Looking at her own cabbage, Zihi's Henhong nodded. Yes, ignore him. Leave this kid to me. Go to school and ask for leave for this brat. Yeah, Yuhi Kurenai nodded, then looked at Yuki Yuichi with some concern, and then left. Although she said she would ignore Yuki Yuichi, she was still very worried after Yuhi Kurenai left. Yuhi Shinku looked at Yuki Yuichi and sighed. He wanted to be angry. But when he remembered that he did not tell this kid yesterday that he could not create too many shadow clones, he could not get angry. This seems to be my own fault, but who knew that this kid could learn the shadow clone technique in such a short time? Yuhi Shinku was still regretting. Yuki Yuichi opened his eyes in a daze. His memory was still a little confused then. Under the gaze of Yuhi Shinku, a palm-sized scroll was taken out from under Yuki Yuichi's crotch. Sunset is really red. Do you have any pockets under your crotch? P.S. Please vote for the monthly ticket. Please read the book. The monthly ticket and the reading of the new book period account for the largest proportion, please. Chapter 61. It must be you, Denzo. This scroll is smaller than a normal psychic scroll. Holding the scroll and unfolding it, Yuhi Shinku was stunned for a moment, then looked at Yuki Yuichi strangely and read out the words on it word by word. The fire crow of red flame will eventually punch the toad and kick the snake. Looking to the left, I saw Yuki Yuichi's name clearly. Is this a psychic scroll? Anyone can learn psychic arts, but not everyone can have a psychic beast. How come this kid Yuki suddenly got this thing? Yuhi Shinku closed the scroll, glanced at Yuki Yuichi's crotch, and after thinking about it, she put the scroll on the table because of his dazed state. Yuki Yuichi had no idea that he had exposed the Fire Crow clan. He was still dizzy at this time and could only vaguely see Zihi's Henhong walking towards him. The last thing he remembered was his strange face at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Yuki slowly opened his eyes from the bed. Strange smallpox. Yuki Yuichi was still a little confused, mumbling incoherently. The next moment, his eyes closed, then suddenly opened and he jumped up from the bed. A familiar ceiling. What's wrong with me? Standing on the bed, Yuki touched his head, and the next moment, the memory of death emerged. Damn Uzumaki Naruto. Yuki originally thought that everyone was from the Uzumaki clan, and he also had a Uchiha bloodline and a 1.5 Magatama Sharingan. Although I know it's not suitable to create too many shadow clones, I can at least create dozens of them. But for the first time, I'd better be safe and create 8 shadow clones, which shouldn't be a problem. It turns out this is not a big problem. This is fucking fatal. He had no doubt that if he had divided a few more, he would be a corpse. Now there is actually not much difference between shadow clone and multiple shadow clones. The reason for splitting them up is because the shadow clones need to be split out slowly, and not too many can be split out at one time, and multiple shadow clones can create thousands of them at a time. But apart from this difference, there is nothing else. As long as there is enough time, using shadow clones can actually achieve the effect of multiple shadow clones. The principle of the difference between the two. The map is not water. As if she heard the noise in the room, Ziri's Henhong leaned against the door frame of his door with the Fire Crow clan's spiritual scroll in her hand. Next, Yuhi Shinku said, and threw the Fire Crow clan's summoning scroll to Yuki Yuichi. Where did you get this? Subconsciously taking the scroll, Yuki Yuichi opened it and discovered that it belonged to the Fire Crow clan. He immediately tried to sense the dark space in his mind, but was certain when he found that he could not sense it. I don't know when I took out the Fire Crow clan's spiritual scroll. After hearing what Yuhi Shinku said, Yuchi thought for a while and said, I encountered a bird on fire in the forest behind the Hokage rock this morning. Yuki said this, and secretly glanced at Yuhi Shinku. Seeing that he was listening carefully, he continued, then I poured a bucket of water on it to try to put out the fire. After the fire was out, it asked me to sign my name on it, and then it threw the scroll to me and flew away. As he spoke, Yuki Yuichi raised the summoning scroll in his hand. Upon hearing this, Zihi Shinku fell into silence for a moment. If he remembered correctly, the name on this scroll seemed to be Fire Crow. Although I have never heard of the Fire Crow clan, I know from the name that it is related to fire. The little bird is probably a crow from the Fire Crow clan. There is fire coming out of his body, so he must be practicing something. Then the guy put out the fire on the man with the water. But they didn't blame him. Instead they made him sign a spiritual contract. Yuhi Shinku reorganized the context in her mind, but was still speechless. In the end he understood all these things, but why couldn't he understand them together? He did not doubt Uchiha Yuichi's words. Although Uchiha Yuichi is naughty, lawless and does bad things, he knows that this boy is a good boy and has never lied to him. There is no reason why I should lie to myself about my own children, and that's a good thing too. After all, this is a psychic beast, and an intelligent one at that. Don't think that summoning beasts are easy to contract with just because many ninjas have them. You know, the summoning scrolls of summoning beasts are the foundation of many ninja clans. For example, the Sarutobi clan, Saruman clan fire style, Great Flame Jutsu, and the Sarutobi clan are the family ninjutsu and summoning beasts of the Sarutobi clan. It is also the foundation of one's life. You know, the Uchiha are still contracted to be ninja cats. Don't they want to? There is no suitable combat summoning beast contract. After thinking a lot, Yuhi Shinku took a deep breath, looked at Yuki Yuichi, and said seriously, "You keep the scroll yourself. This is your luck and your ability, but you must keep the scroll well and don't lose it." Listening to what Yuhi Shinku said, Uchiha Yuichi looked at the scroll in his hand and agreed with what she said in his heart. This scroll really needs to be put away, otherwise, remaking it would cost us a fortune. He wasn't worried about someone secretly signing their name on it. No matter what you sign, the Fire Crow must respond to you. Thinking of this, Yuki Yuichi looked at Yuhi Shinku curiously. "Uncle, aren't you going to sign?" Hearing Yuki Yuichi's words, Yuhi Shinku raised her eyebrows, then shook her head and said, "I have my own summoning beast, and this is your summoned beast. You must get the consent of the Fire Crow before you can use it." Zairi Zhenhong saw very clearly that a summoning beast race like this one that possessed its own summoning scroll must not be simple without their consent. No one can sign a contract just like Jiraiya. Back then it was no secret in Konoha that Jiraiya had unexpectedly disappeared after performing the summoning technique. He was really lucky to be able to sign a contract with a toad from Myaboku Mountain after Jiraiya came back. Is there no one coveting the summoning beasts of Myaboku Mountain? Yuhi Shinku could only laugh at this. According to rumor, a current Hokage elder had once coveted it and seemed to have been beaten up. Thinking of this, Zihi Zhenhong once again warned, "Be careful not to be fooled. In the past, a senior executive wanted someone else's summoning beast and was beaten up. Even the person who signed the contract was beaten up by his own summoning beast. You have to be careful not to get beaten by your own summoned beast. That would be so embarrassing." When hearing what Yuhi Shinku said, the first thing that came to Uchiha Yuki's mind was a mysterious bandaged man. "It must be you, Denzo." Chapter 61. I have never felt so helpless as I do now. In Konoha. No. In the entire ninja world, if there is a blame to be found and no one can be found, then just put the blame on Denzo. If you put the blame on all 10 people, maybe one of them is wrong, but 9 out of 10 pots are filled with liquid. There will definitely be some that slip through the net. This is the power of the darkness of the ninja world. You have to know that Denzo is the elder of Konoha, but he can go outside and destroy the existence of Akatsuki. The old sow at the entrance of Konoha village wailing in the middle of the night might be related to Denzo, the first pot shadow of the hidden kitchen village. Danzo Shimura once said, "Wherever there is smoke, there must be a pot. The pot brings happiness to people under the burning flame." This is the will of the pot. After pondering for a moment, Uchiha Yuichi thought of Kurenai. He wanted Zirihong to sign a contract with the Fire Crow clan. If he remembered correctly, Yuhi Kurenai seemed to be just a Genjutsu Jonin, too weak compared to those who used cheats. There wasn't much help I could offer. The Fire Crow clan was one of them. He doesn't ask for too much. At least he can have more ability to protect himself. Illusion-type ninjas are too fragile. Yuki Yuichi thought and looked at Yuhi Shinku. His face no longer had the usual playful smile, nor was there any sign of insincerity. Instead, his expression was serious and earnest. "Uncle Zhenhong, I want Hong to sign a contract." Upon hearing this, Yuhi Shinku frowned slightly. She originally wanted to tell Yuki Yuichi not to waste his effort, but when she saw his serious expression, she sighed. But at the same time, I felt relieved. Although Uchiha Yuichi and Kurenai were adopted by him and his biological children respectively, they are both his own children in his eyes. It's just that these two children seem to be getting together, which makes him a little unbearable. But seeing Uchiha Yuichi's performance now, he was worried that he would be criticized by the summoned beast, but at the same time he was very relieved. After thinking for a while, Zihi Zhenhong said, "Your summoning beast needs you to communicate. If they agree, then of course they can." Yuki Yuichi nodded heavily. He hadn't thought about whether the Fire Crows would listen to him or not. "What's wrong with signing it for your future wife? Is there a problem?" "No problem." Yuhi Shinku didn't stay here for long. She just told Yuki Yuichi to pay attention to his spirit and then went downstairs. Yuki Yuichi could feel that his steps became much lighter as he went down the stairs. As for Yuhi Shinku's advice to be alert, Yuki Yuichi didn't feel much about it now. The splitting headache he had in the morning was much better now, although it still feels a little stinging. It doesn't affect anything at the same time. He made up his mind that he would never create so many shadow clones at the same time again. Thinking of this, Yuki couldn't help but curse. Damn Uzumaki Naruto. He trusted Uzumaki Naruto too much, so much so that he forgot that the Uzumaki clan's physique could only allow him to use many shadow clones, but it was not enough to cure his spirit. He now has a lot of chakra. And the dragon fire technique he learned a few days ago can be used dozens or even hundreds of times at a time, but this is only physical satisfaction. The technique of multiple shadow clones requires two conditions. There is enough chakra to ensure that he can create hundreds or thousands of shadow clones and still survive very brainless. There is nothing extra in the brain. I only satisfied one of them, unlike Uzumaki Naruto, who had nothing in his mind. For those who have experienced the internet explosion, their minds must be overloaded with thoughts every minute, not to mention that he was letting his shadow clone study ninjutsu. Thinking of this, Uchiha looked out the window. It's still early now, so we can still go to the Fire Crow clan. Although the Fire Crow clan's summoned beast was a reward from the system, he thought it would be better to ask otherwise. If I really get beaten, it would be a disgrace to me. He did it as soon as he thought of it. Yuki immediately put on his clothes and was about to go to Red Flame Mountain when he saw the summoning scroll that he had placed aside. Out of the corner of his eye, he immediately picked up the scroll, thought about it, and disappeared into the room. But soon he reappeared in the room, covered in dust and dirt. Heat, too hot. As soon as he entered, he saw a sea of fire moving back and forth in the air at the same time. Countless flames appeared on the ground. It was completely different from the feeling he had when he first went in at that time. He just felt that the air was a little hotter than outside, but there was no difference. Only now did I truly feel the capabilities of the Fire Crow clan. Horrible, really terrible. If I could summon so many Fire Crows, I would probably be able to kill a lot of ninjas. Yuki Yuichi thought that he no longer planned to go in. It would be better to let the Fire Crow clan have fun on their own in Chien Mountain. Thinking of this, Yuki's mind moved again. A Fire Crow with a scar on one eye instantly appeared in front of him. What happened? Want to fight? The Fire Crow said this, looking around and flying up at the same time, with flames coming out of its body. Looking around vigilantly, after a while, seeing that there was no danger, it dispersed the flames on its body, stood on the ground and raised its head to look at Yuki. Are you the one who summoned me? Hearing this, Yuki twitched a corner of his mouth. Why do you, the Fire Crow clan, look so much like gangsters? This is true for the Crow Immortal, for the Big Crow, and for you, an ordinary Fire Crow. Yuki was certain that it was not an illusion when he returned from Red Flame Mountain. When he just went to Chien Mountain, although his attention was on the sea of fire in the sky, he still heard the domineering voice of the crow. Hurry up! How are you going to fight like this later? Thinking about what happened just now, Yuki shook his head, looked at the Fire Crow standing on the ground, and asked, "What's your name?" Me. Fire Crow was stunned when he heard that, and lowered his head to think for a while. Originally I don't have a name, but since you asked, you can call me Scar from now on. As he spoke, Scar pointed to the scar on his left eye with his wing. This is the symbol of my battles from the north of Chien Mountain to the south of Chien Mountain. Scar was still a little proud, thinking back then. I flapped my wings and 3,000 subordinates rushed out at once. Yuki Yuichi, well, it's confirmed, he is a person who likes to brag. There are still things to do now, and we can't listen to Scar bragging here. Uchiha immediately stopped him. Stop talking for now, I have something to ask the Crow Immortal, or you can ask the Great Crow. What's the matter? Scar tilted his head and asked. Actually, you can come to me. She, the Big Crow, can make the decision, so why can't I, the Second Crow, make the decision? Yuki Yuichi, isn't your name Scar? But you can also call me Yang. I don't have a specific name, and I don't want to live as anyone else. But I swear to become the Second Immortal. Yuki Yuichi has never felt so helpless as he does now. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 62, He fled, she chased, he called in number 039, get away even if you had wings. Looking at Scar's expression, Yuki Yuichi thought for a moment and said, I want others to sign the contract with your Fire Crow clan. I want to ask you something." Hearing this, Scar said indifferently, "If you want to sign, just sign it. The scroll is in your hand. Why are you asking us, Yuki Yuichi? Are you all so casual?" Yeah, the scroll is in your hands anyway. You can do whatever you want with it. We are just following you to fight. Okay, stop bothering me," Scar said, leaving a message. "Just sign your name on the scroll and show it to Crow. I'm going to continue dancing." Having said that, it immediately cancelled the psychic technique and went back after Scar left. Yuki Yuichi sat on the edge of the bed and fell into deep thought. The Fire Crow clan's attitude towards me is surprisingly good. However, the Fire Crow clan cannot use it for the time being. After all, he does not need to fight now, and he cannot learn the Sage mode for the time being. Just let Kurenai sign the contract and leave it alone. Yuki Yuichi thought about it and walked towards the door. Henhong saw him coming downstairs and asked curiously, "Are you going out?" Hearing what Yuhi Shinku said, Yuki nodded. "I'll go pick up Hong." When Yuhi Shinku heard this, she frowned and was about to say something, but she saw Yuki Yuichi running straight out the door. After Yuki Yuichi went out the door, Yuhi Shinku shook her head and shouted to the outside, "Pay more attention to your spirit. Spirit, I'm in good spirits." Yuki Yuichi ran towards the ninja school without looking back. Although he knew that what Yuhi Shinku was talking about was because of the shadow clone, he always felt that she was making a veiled accusation, but he had no evidence. Yuki Yuichi was very fast, and when he arrived at the ninja school, school had not yet ended. "There's no one here." Yuki stuck his head inside and looked. There was no so-called gatekeeper in the ninja school. If it is in the center of Konoha and has many chunin teachers, it still needs a doorman. That only means that Konoha has reached a critical moment of life and death. There is no need for ninja school to exist anymore. He looked inside and saw no one. Ninja school ends at 5 in the afternoon. He checked the time before leaving the house. It was just past 3 o'clock, and including the time it took to get here, it was just over 4 o'clock. Just as he was about to go in, Uzumaki Kushina's voice sounded behind him. "You little brat, why are you skipping class again?" Upon hearing this, Yuki Yuichi looked back and saw Uzumaki Kushina walking towards him with her arms folded across her chest. Seeing Yuki turning around and looking at her, Uzumaki Kushina laughed and reached out to touch his head. "I'm taking a leave of absence." Avoiding the pat on the head, Yuki Yuichi took a few steps back, his face red with anger. "Don't touch my head. As a sister, what's wrong with me touching your head?" Uzumaki Kushina sneered. The more Yuki Yuichi resisted, the more excited she became. She used to not care about being touched on the head, but this time she had to get it touched. Seeing that she was still stubborn, Yuki Yuichi turned around and ran away, not going to the ninja school anymore. While he was still shouting, "You still say you are my sister? You won't grow taller if you touch your head. There are only 2 of us in the Uzumaki clan. If I'm not your sister, what am I to you?" Uzumaki Kushina was hanging far behind Yuki Yuichi. "If you don't want to call me sister, you can also call me aunt." When Yuki in front heard this, he almost stumbled and fell to the ground. "Aunt? No need." Uzumaki Kushina was just out for a stroll, but when she saw Yuki sneaking around the entrance of the ninja school, she couldn't help but say hello. "I didn't expect this little brat to be so funny. She also wants to give birth to such an interesting child in the future." Uzumaki Kushina thought silently in her heart that she must have one such a fun little kid at home. He escapes, she chases, and he can't fly. Uzumaki Kushina did not use any ninja skills, but simply relied on her strong physique to chase Yuki Yuichi. The two chased for a while, and Uzumaki Kushina seemed a little impatient, and immediately rushed forward. Just a glance, and Yuki was lifted up by her by the collar. "Let me go." Seeing Yuki Yuichi's look, Uzumaki Kushina smiled and ruffled his hair with her hands. "It feels pretty good, as expected of the red-haired one from our Uzumaki clan. Damn it, I will definitely touch it back later." Yuki glared. "It seems that the time to develop the head padding ninjutsu is to be advanced. When I develop the head padding ninjutsu, I will definitely make Uzumaki Kushina bald." Not paying attention to Yuki Yuichi's angry look, Uzumaki Kushina put him down, clapped her hands, and put her hands on her hips. Okay, sister will treat you to ramen, okay? Sister?" Yuki Yuichi nodded immediately. He slept from noon to afternoon and hasn't eaten anything yet, so he's really a little hungry. Seeing how quickly Yuki Yuichi's expression changed, Uzumaki Kushina couldn't help but laugh. "Hey, you are really shameless. You should know that a man who knows the times is a hero," Yuki Yuichi said seriously. "Besides, it's just a pat on the head. It's no big deal. Haha, come on, I'll treat you to ramen." Uzumaki Kushina laughed. then pulled Yuki Yuichi away. The distance they chased was not far, and they were still very close to Ichiriko Ramen. It only took them 3 or 4 minutes to walk there since it was a little after 4 in the afternoon and not yet time for lunch. There were not many customers in Ichiriko Ramen. Seeing Uzumaki Kushina and Yuki Yuichi, he smiled and said, "What would you like to eat, both of you?" He still has a deep impression of Yuki Yuichi after all. Over the years, many people have praised his skills, but there is only one person like Yuki Yuichi who admits that he is the best at ramen. Moreover, some time ago, Yuki often came to visit with his girlfriend and several other friends. Hand-to-hand combat, uncle. Old rules. I want a bowl of tonkatsu ramen, with an extra Naruto roll. Uzumaki Kushina sat down. I'll just do the same as before, okay? 1 bowl of tonkatsu ramen with Naruto roll and 1 bowl of miso ramen. He made a sound of hand stroke in response, and then began to work on his craft. Little boy, why didn't you go to class? While busy with her craft, Uzumaki Kushina looked at Yuki Yuichi. Didn't I tell you before? I've asked for leave this afternoon. Then how did you appear at the school gate? Uzumaki Kushina looked at him in confusion. Are you stupid? I'm looking for Hong. Yuki Yuichi looked at Uzumaki Kushina as if to ask, are you stupid? Chapter 63 Achievement, the beginning of protection. Being left speechless by Yuki Yuichi's look, Uzumaki Kushina clenched her fists and looked at him with a smile. It seems to be saying, if you have the guts, say it again. Seeing her appearance, Yuki Yuichi swallowed. I seem to have overlooked one thing. The Uzumaki Kushina in front of him is known as the blood red pepper. Wouldn't I be beaten to death for saying this? He called up the panel and took a look at the ninjutsu, defense level 2. Ninjutsu, defense LV2, passively gain 20% damage reduction effect, can be activated for 1 second, damage reduction effect doubled, cooldown for 1 day. This time you finally see hope of resisting the heavenly abyss star. It seems that my ability cannot withstand a punch from Uzumaki Kushina. Looking at Uzumaki Kushina's sandbag-sized fist, Yuki Yuichi decided to follow his heart. I have something to do with Hong. I didn't expect to meet the kind, beautiful, gentle, generous and cultured sister Kushina here, Yuki Yuichi said, showing a touched expression. You even treated me to ramen. I'm so touched. You have good taste. Uzumaki Kushina patted his shoulder with a smile. I didn't expect that Minato didn't see these characteristics of mine, but you did. I'm very optimistic about you. While the two were talking, the typing had already been completed. He held 2 bowls of ramen, placed them on the table, and looked at the 2 of them with a smile on his face. You 2 siblings have such a great relationship. It reminds me of my lost youth. The hand typer did not doubt the sibling relationship between Uzumaki Kushina and Yuki Yuichi. That red hair is the iconic evidence. Ha ha ha. Of course, Uzumaki Kushina couldn't help but laugh with her hands on her hips when she heard the words typed. I'm a very good sister. Looking at Uzumaki Kushina laughing, Yuki Yuichi was silent. He didn't expect that Uzumaki Kushina would feel happy and joyful because of a sentence typed by hand. Even he could feel this joy that came from the heart. Tilting his head, Yuki thought of the original work of Naruto. It seems that my sister died at the beginning. As Yuki Yuichi was thinking, he was suddenly hit on the head. Uzumaki Kushina hit him again with her chopsticks. The ramen is already here. Don't think about anything else. Yuki Yuichi heard this and nodded, and together with Uzumaki Kushina, I'm starting. Although he was eating ramen, Yuki Yuichi was still thinking about the night of the 9-tailed fox. Thinking of how Uzumaki Kushina treated him, he thought to himself, I can't let this happen. He has no goals or dreams. He just wants to survive in this world. But humans are not heartless creatures. They also have emotions. Uzumaki Kushina was so nice to him. Although they didn't meet often, he could feel that she really treated him as a family member. Non-vegetation, ruthless practice makes perfect. Achievement, the beginning of protection, protecting the people you cherish. This is the meaning of protection. Finding the boy you are bound to. This is the beginning of protection. Reward, ninjutsu, defense, ninjutsu, defense, passively gain 20% damage reduction effect. Only with great strength can you protect the one you love. The defensive protection, ninjutsu, defense LV2 upgrade to ninjutsu, defense LV3, ninjutsu, defense LV3, passively gain 20% damage reduction effect, can be activated for 2 seconds, damage reduction effect doubled, cooldown 23 hours. Have you protected the people you want to protect? Looking at the panel that suddenly popped up in front of him, Yuki was stunned. He really didn't expect that he could trigger the achievement this way. He glanced at Uzumaki Kushina and saw her eating noodles without even raising her head. Yuki Yuichi also started to eat noodles. He always thought that achievement rewards could only be triggered by behavior, but I didn't expect that just having this intention would actually trigger one. I have been busy for a long time, but I can't trigger any of them. Is this really just a matter of fate? However, the achievement reward this time is still ninjutsu, defense, and it looks like it can be repeated many times. Yuki Yuichi thought about it and silently calculated the effect of ninjutsu, defense level 3, and the cooldown was reduced by 1 hour at the same time. The damage reduction doubling effect that originally lasted for 1 second was extended to 2 seconds. The changes are still huge. The most important thing is that there seems to be no upper limit to this reward, so will it become a permanent damage reduction in the end, or even increase the damage reduction multiple later? Yuki Yuichi thought about it and couldn't help feeling a little excited. He decided to take back what he had said before about this secret scroll being rubbish. As Yuki Yuichi was thinking, the ramen was almost gone. After drinking the soup, Yuki Yuichi burped loudly and touched his stomach. I'm full. Little brat, why don't you go find your girlfriend? Uzumaki Kushina had finished eating a long time ago. Seeing that he had finished eating too, she said, it's almost time to go home from school now. As she spoke, she pointed to the wall clock inside the ramen shop. The time displayed on it was 16:47, and there were only 13 minutes left until school was over. No hurry, Yuki Yuichi said calmly. It only takes 10 minutes from here to school, and Red won't come out too early. It's totally in time. If it weren't for him, Zairi Hong would have wanted to stay after school every time the teacher asked her to stay after school. Hearing Yuki Yuichi's words, Uzumaki Kushina chuckled. So, I haven't told you yet why you asked for leave? Yuki Yuichi was stunned when he heard this. It seemed that he really didn't say it. Touching his head, Yuki Yuichi said truthfully, I used the shadow clone and suffered backlash, then I asked for leave. Backlash? How many clones did you create? Uzumaki Kushina was stunned and asked tentatively. 5, not enough. Yuki Yuichi stood up and gestured. That's 8. You don't want your life, even though our Uzumaki clan has a special physique. Creating 8 shadow clones right from the start is courting death. Who gave you the illusion that you could have 8 shadow clones? Seeing that she was a little angry, Yuki Yuichi shrank back. You can't say that it was an illusion given to me by your future child, right? At the same time, he also made up his mind that when Uzumaki Naruto was born, he would flick his sparrow a few times to avenge today's revenge. Me. Yuki Yuichi. I hold a grudge. Seeing him shrink, Uzumaki Kushina slowly regained her composure and took a deep breath. From now on, just create 2 shadow clones in the morning, wait until you go to bed at night and then you can remove it. Although you will feel uncomfortable, you will feel better after a good night's sleep. In this way, even if the clone has many thoughts and experiences, it can digest them in one night, and there won't be too many side effects. Uzumaki Kushina continued to talk about the precautions of shadow clones. When it was almost time, she thought for a moment and said, although you are training, you can focus on chakra control exercises. The sealing technique of our Uzumaki clan is also very powerful. It was supposed to be updated at 8 o'clock, but I forgot. It shouldn't be too late to update it now, right? Chapter 64 Sealing Techniques can be used. The Uzumaki clan's sealing technique is the strongest in the ninja world. At the same time, sealing techniques have many uses. The simplest example is the moon that shines at night. That's also within the scope of the sealing technique. Therefore, in Uzumaki Kushina's heart, Uchiha Yuichi, who possesses the Uzumaki bloodline, is the best successor to the sealing technique. She is now the elder of the Uzumaki clan, and the once prosperous clan now only has 2 people left as the only male child. Uchiha Yuichi had high expectations. As long as there are still people, the Uzumaki clan will not be considered extinct. Looking at Yuki Yuichi, Uzumaki Kushina thought silently in her heart. She was most excited when Yuki Yuichi was born because this means the revival of the Uzumaki clan. Unfortunately, good things come to those who wait. Yuki Yuichi's mother died during childbirth, and Uzumaki Aomizu, who changed his name to Yuki Aomizu, died as his father during a mission. There are only 2 people left in the Uzumaki clan. Thinking of this, Uzumaki Kushina smiled, reached out and touched Yuki Yuichi's head again, and said, when you graduate from the ninja school, you can formally learn the sealing technique of our Uzumaki clan. Upon hearing this, Yuki Yuichi nodded, but he was still a little confused about his name. I am a member of the Uzumaki clan. My name is Yuki. This made him feel a little awkward. It's not that I deny my own name, it's just that it feels weird. Just like how 5 of the 4 heavenly kings have it. As if she could see what he was thinking. Uzumaki Kushina paused as she was about to leave and turned to look at Yuuki Yuichi. Yuuki is a good last name. Once you return to being a vortex, many people will set their sights on you. Looking at Yuichi's current state, people will just think that he happens to have red hair, rather than treating him as a surviving descendant of the Uzumaki clan. After all, there are still people with red hair in the ninja world, although not many. As far as she knows, Chiyo's son in the Sands village has red hair, although the fact that Yuuki is a member of the Uzumaki clan may not be kept secret for long. It can at least help him get through the initial period when he's weak. Even she had been kidnapped before, even in Konoha. It is not absolutely safe. This is also the reason why Zuan Kingshu changed his surname after hearing what Uzumaki Kushina said. Yuuki nodded. After all, he was not a real child, so he knew this, but the weird feeling still existed. I have the Sharingan and the sage body of the Uzumaki clan, so my name is Yuuki Yuichi. Is there any problem with that? Uzumaki Kushina and Yuuki Yuichi explained some basic knowledge about how to control chakra, and then left. Yuuki Yuichi stood there thinking for a long time. Then, as if he thought of something, he looked up at the wall clock hanging on the wall of Ichiriko ramen shop and exclaimed, "Oops! I forgot there was red." Realizing this, Yuuki ran away. The time he just saw was already past 5:10. It was about 10 minutes after the ninja school was over, and although Kurenai liked listening to the teacher's lectures, she couldn't say for sure. After all, in her eyes, she had been severely injured by the shadow clone when Yuuki arrived at the school. Many students were walking outside. I don't know how many people have left. Ignoring the people around him, Yuuki ran towards his classroom. Some people looked at him strangely along the way. As soon as he ran to the classroom, Yuuki stopped and looked inside from the window. At the same time, the voice of Ikuku scolding was heard. "If you don't study hard now, you will understand when your classmates become Chunin or even Jonin and you are still Jinan. Your efforts today are for future success. Are you going to school for me, your teacher? You are going to school for yourself. You guys are truly the worst class I've ever taught." The roar of Ikuku came from the classroom. Yuuki swallowed his saliva. He had never seen Ikuku like this before. In his impression, Kano was always gentle and reasonable. I didn't expect he had such a side to him. I looked inside and saw that many students had already left, but most of them were those sitting in the back rows. But there are exceptions. For example, Uchiha Obito is still here. Following Uchiha Obito's gaze to the side and extending to the window, he found that Kurenai was still there, and Yuuchi breathed a sigh of relief. However, what surprised him was that Hatake Kakashi was also here and did not go home at this time. Ikuku's voice continued to be heard, as if he was tired, and called out to Hatake Kakashi. And then spoke, "Tell me why the teacher wants you to stay in class." Yuuki was standing outside a window at this time, looking at Kakashi Hatake with a pair of dead fish eyes. Although his expression could not be seen because of the mask, he could clearly feel that this guy's heart was broken. "I do not know." Hearing Hatake Kakashi's answer, Ikuku snorted, "If you can't think of it, then just study hard. Don't be naughty anymore. Although you are genius, only a genius who grows up is a genius." Hi. Hatake Kakashi turned his head and looked at Uchiha Obito with a look of despair, then noticed Yuuki sticking his head out of the window, and immediately snorted coldly. "Although I don't know why the teacher is targeting me like this, it must be this guy Yuuchi's doing." "What? Are you not convinced by what the teacher said?" Ikuku's voice came again. Hatake Kakashi shook his head decisively, and at the same time, he had the idea of graduating early. He really doesn't want to take this kind of course. Seeing Hatake Kakashi shaking his head, Ikuku didn't continue to worry about it, but continued to teach. Yuuki saw this scene outside the window and couldn't help shaking his head. Poor Kakashi. He was played around by teacher Ikuku, sighing in his heart. Yuuki slowly squatted down with his back against the wall, while suggesting to himself that he should be weak. Then he ruffled his hair a little more, and when he was about to stand up, he thought it was not appropriate, so he immediately formed a seal and created a shadow clone who was also half. Crouching by the wall, the two looked at each other, and the shadow clone quickly formed a seal and shouted, while 1.5 Magatama appeared in his eyes, "Magic, this is not the art." This was the only illusion he had learned. Although this illusion is a confusing one, with the help of the Sharingan, it can still give certain hints. The shadow clone looked at Yuuki, who was in a daze, and nodded, "As expected of me, I am really smart." After saying that, the shadow clone disappeared on the spot, and with the return of the shadow clone, Yuuki also broke the illusion. Chapter 65, A Man Should Be Hard. His face now looked a little pale and his hair was a little messy. He looked listless, and it was obvious that he had not yet recovered from the mental trauma, but this is just an appearance. In fact, he has recovered after tidying himself up. Yuki Yuichi appeared at the door of the classroom with messy hair and a pale face. As soon as he appeared, Umino Ichikatsu noticed him. Seeing his appearance, he smiled and asked with some concern, "Yuchi-san, is there something you need to come here for?" Yuki Yuichi opened his mouth slightly, his throat a little hoarse. "Teacher, Uncle Zhenhuang asked me to find Hong, saying that there is something." Hearing his words, Umino Ikoku frowned. He did not doubt the truth of this sentence, but felt that Yuhi Shinku was going too far. He found out more about Uchiha Yuki during the afternoon class and was traumatized by the shadow clone incident. Instead of resting properly after this kind of trauma, he was actually called into action by Yuhi Shinku. It's too much? At this moment, the only thing on Umino Ikoku's mind was finding an opportunity to complain to the Hokage, even though Yuhi Shinku is a Jonin, even though he is also the guardian of Yuki Yuichi. After all, he is Yuki Yuichi's teacher. As a teacher, you naturally have to protect your students. Kano smiled slightly and looked at Yuki Yuichi with some pity. It must be very hard for this child to live in such a family since childhood. Thinking of this, he turned his head to look at Yuhi Kurenai again and said, "In that case, Kurenai, you and Yuichi should go back first." When Yuhi Kurenai saw Yuki Yuichi, she had already packed her things. When she heard what Umino Ikoku said, she immediately walked towards the door. When the two were about to leave, Umino Ikoku couldn't help but say, "Hong." Zihong turned her head and looked at him in confusion, not understanding why he was calling her. "Be nice to Yuichi at home and don't let anyone bully him." Umino Ikoku said this, nodding at her with a straight face. Yuhi Kurenai blinked when she heard that. She didn't quite understand what he meant, but she still nodded and clenched one hand in front of her. "I will definitely protect Yuichi." Upon hearing this, Umino Ikoku nodded with satisfaction. He still trusts Zihong very much. She is well-behaved, sensible, and gentle. When seen at school, she is usually with Yuki Yuichi, and the two seem to have a very good relationship. If Yuhi Kurenai is around, I'm sure that Yuhi Shinku Jounin won't make things too difficult for Yuki Yuichi. As Yuhi Kurenai and Yuki Yuichi walked away, Umino Ikoku continued his lecture. However, Hatake Kakashi, who was sitting in his seat, fell into self-doubt. If I'm not mistaken, Yuki Yuichi's expression at the beginning was not like this at this moment. Kakashi Hatake seemed to understand the methods used by Yuki Yuichi. Yuki is such a sinister guy, not knowing what Hatake Kakashi and Umino Ikoku were thinking. Kurenai Yuhi was looking at Yuki with a worried look on her face. "That is really too much. I let you out even though I knew Yaoichi was injured," Yuhi Kurenai said, puffing up her little face and looking angry, which looked very cute. Yuki Yuichi chuckled beside him but didn't say anything. He's still in school, so for the sake of caution, it is better for him not to recover after leaving the ninja school and walking a distance. Yuki Yuichi quickly rubbed his face under Yuhi Kurenai's surprised gaze, then his face returned to its normal rosy color at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yuhi Kurenai opened her mouth slightly, somewhat confused as to what was going on. Seeing her look, Yuki Yuichi grinned. "Isn't this the first time I saw the teacher angry when I arrived at school? I'll make myself miserable so that the teacher won't vent his anger on me." After hearing Yuki Yuichi's reason, Yuhi Kurenai didn't know what to say for a moment. She just stared at him blankly for a long time, and then uttered, "So, your injury this morning has healed, okay?" Yuki Yuichi smiled and patted his chest. "You know my physical condition. No matter how serious the injury is, I can get better after a good night's sleep." It's the same this time. When she heard Yuki Yuichi say in person that she was fine, Kurenai Yuhi was obviously relieved. Then he said, "In that case, let's go back quickly." As he said that, he took Yuki Yuichi's hand and ran towards home, muttering, "I wonder what Dad wants to talk to me about." Upon hearing this, Yuki coughed lightly and said, "Uncle Shinku is here to see you." "Huh?" Zihong stopped and turned to look at him in confusion. Yuki looked around, then leaned over to Kurenai's ear and whispered, "Let's go to the training ground. I'll talk to you when we get to the training ground." Hearing his words, Yuhi Kurenai nodded. "Since it wasn't my father looking for me, then it must be Yaoi looking for me. But if there's something, you can just tell her when she comes back, and you don't have to go to school to find her." Yuhi Kurenai thought about it and was certain that Yuki Yuichi must have something very important to tell her. When the two walked to the training ground, they were stunned. "Kay, why are you here, looking at my guy who is practicing hard?" Yuki spoke in surprise. "Oh, it's Yuchi and Hong. My guy was doing push-ups with one hand and didn't stop." "Youth cannot waste every minute of your time. No matter what time it is, you must practice hard. This is the light of youth." Are you here to practice as well? Might Guy said, doing push-ups with tears streaming down his face. You have finally joined the embrace of youth. Seeing his look, Yuki twitched a corner of his mouth. He kept talking about youth. He didn't want to be as young as Might Guy and his son. However, he will start practicing his physical strength and chakra control next. You can practice with Might Guy. Thinking of this, Yuki Yuichi's expression became serious. Kai, I'll start practicing taijutsu with you tomorrow. A man should be tough. Well said, Might Guy shouted, stopped his actions, stood up and looked at Yuki with tears flowing uncontrollably, but he still grinned, showing his shiny teeth, and gave Yuki a thumbs up. Kurenai couldn't stand it anymore and asked Yuchi, why did you ask me to come here? Hearing this, Yuki took out the Fire Crow clan's summoning scroll from his arms. I want you to sign this psychic contract. As he spoke, he unfolded the scroll, revealing the words on it, Fire Crow. Chapter 66, A True Innocent Heart. What is this? Hong didn't know about the matter of summoning beasts. According to general perception, summoning beasts require directly signing a contract with a human-like animal, rather than signing a summoning scroll. Seeing Kurenai's puzzled look, Yuchi grinned, ignored Might Guy who had already approached, and said, this is a summoning beast, sign your name here, and you will be able to summon the fire crows to help you fight. As he spoke, Yuki pointed to his own name on it. Although I have never signed my name, when I received the award, my name automatically appeared on it. Upon hearing this, Kurenai glanced at the name on the summoning contract, then looked up at Yuki and blinked her big eyes. But isn't the psychic contract signed directly with a psychic beast? Doesn't it require the consent of both parties? Kurenai was puzzled. In her worldview, summoning beasts should be like those ninjas, finding suitable animals and then asking for consent. Looking at Kurenai's expression, Yuchi knew that this was a genuine doubt, and immediately explained, that is an ordinary summoning beast. Generally speaking, when signing a summoning contract with a summoning beast, one signs one's own name directly on the summoning scroll. As he said this, he took the summoning scroll from Hong's hand and raised it. Sigoi. Before Kurenai could react, Might Guy exclaimed with shining eyes, so a psychic beast can be like this, then I will also sign a contract with such a powerful psychic beast race in the future. Glancing at Might Guy, Yuchi's mouth twitched slightly, but thinking of a certain unlucky turtle, he still encouraged, you will do it, Kai, to strive hard for the belief in one's heart. This is youth, burning youth. Well said, Might Guy said, tears streaming down his face again, and he looked at Yuki with excitement. You are worthy of being the only rival in my life. Then let's start from tomorrow and show them the power of our youth. Woohoo! When Kurenai saw the two of them, she didn't know what to say. For a moment she has always known that Yuki says one thing to one person and another thing to another. However, she was not really used to such abstract conversations. While the two were talking, she took out a pen from somewhere and wrote her own name behind Yuchi's name. Yuki, Sunset Red. When the last stroke was made, Hong vaguely felt that she was bound to a large number of fire crows. Yuki was not fooled by Kurenai's actions. When he saw her signing her name, he put the scroll away. Forget about signing a contract with Hong. After all, this is the old man I raised. Forget about the others. He plans to pass down the Fire Crow clan's spiritual scroll as a family heirloom. Yuchi, I feel connected to many things. Kurenai's eyes glowed as she looked at Yuki with joy and said, it seems that as long as I want, I can channel them all. However, there are so many powerful beings in there that I don't seem to have enough chakra. Hong said, touching her hair, and said embarrassedly. Upon hearing this, Yuki nodded. He actually had the same feeling, but not much, or actually just one, except for the crow immortal. He can communicate with other fire crows, nothing else. More chakra. As a member of the Uzumaki clan, he may not have much other things, but he does have a lot of chakra. There is no need to consider mono-consumption at all. If we count according to Kakashi, his chakra is at least 3 cards. This is because he is still growing and his chakra level is not too high. If he is 50 or years old, he will need at least calories. This is equivalent to the chakra level of 50 elite Jonin. Even though Hatake Kakashi often lacks mana in the original work, in fact, he has a lot of chakra compared to other ninjas. It's just that one of his Sharingan is constantly consuming chakra. The fact that he can release so many ninjutsu while consuming the Sharingan for 24 hours is enough to show the level of his chakra. Thinking of this, Yuki took a deep breath, looked at Kurenai and Might Guy, and said, you two come behind me. After saying that, he looked at Kurenai and said, "You don't have much chakra. I'll use my psychic power to check it out for you." Hearing his words, Yuhi Kurenai nodded her little head, then hid behind him and poked her little head out. Her cautious look made Yuki Yuichi smile. The same was true for Might Guy, but he just stood behind Yuki Yuichi and watched with excitement. He doesn't have a psychic beast, but that doesn't stop him from looking at other people's psychic beasts. At the same time, he secretly cheers himself up in his heart. One day, I will also be able to communicate with a powerful spiritual beast. The kind that can fight with you. After getting ready, Yuki Yuichi took another deep breath and then clapped his hands. Psychic art. Following his action, the crow in the other dimension paused in its flight and then shouted, "Fly well for me, I'm going out for a while." Yes. Big sister. At the Hokage rock training ground, a raven appeared out of nowhere surrounded by flames. He hovered in the air, looked left and right, and then said softly, "Yuichi, what's wrong? Where's the fight? I may be gentle, but I fight wildly." Upon hearing this, Yuki Yuichi looked at her strangely but didn't say anything since Big Crow insists that she is gentle. Then just treat her as gentle. There is no need to fight now. Hearing this, the flames on the crow gradually dissipated and it landed on the ground. Kurenai Yuhi, who was hiding behind Yuki Yuichi, poked her head out and looked at the raven curiously. Might Guy also looked at the crow curiously, and was a little confused. What a strange psychic beast. It actually has 3 claws. Hearing this, Crow looked at Might Guy, wanting to teach this outspoken guy a lesson. It's not polite to comment on someone's third leg like that, but just as she was about to take action, Might Guy's voice reached her ears again. "Damn it. So cool. I also want such a handsome summoning beast." Hearing this, the crow paused, then laughed. "Of course, we, the Fire Crow clan, have always been so cool." Having said that, Day looked at Might Guy again. "Very good. She likes people with such innocent hearts. Then I will definitely sign a summoning beast that is cooler than you in the future." Might Guy's eyes sparkled. The crow's third claw hooked his heart. "That's impossible. There is no one cooler than us, the Fire Crows." Chapter 67. Sealing technique can make men stronger. It only took a few seconds for the crow to go from feeling offended at first to admiring the child's innocence. Yuki Yuichi was speechless when he saw this. After talking to Might Guy for a few words, Crow looked at Yuki Yuichi, but soon noticed Kurenai Yuhi behind him. Feeling the connection with Yuhi Kurenai, Dayu suddenly realized, "This is to introduce myself. Are you the new contractor of our Fire Crow clan?" Looking at Zairi Hong, Dayu asked. Yes. Yuhi Kurenai walked out from behind Yuki Yuichi. He walked to the front of the crow and squatted down. "My name is Zairi Hong. Please give me your guidance in the future." As she spoke, she stretched out a hand. Seeing this, the crow pecked her hand gently, making Yuki break out in a cold sweat. He had seen how sharp the crow's beak was. He had no doubt that if a kunai made of fine iron was here, the crow would be able to peck a few big holes in it effortlessly. But fortunately, the severity of the situation, and Zairi Hong's hand was not hurt. After pecking Yuhi Kurenai, the crow flapped its wings and flew onto her shoulder. "From now on, you will be the second contractor of our Fire Crow clan. You can channel us if you need. If there are any guys who are disobedient, you can tell me," the crow said, straightening his chest and raising his head, and said proudly, "I will teach them a lesson when the time comes." Hearing her words, Yuhi Kurenai nodded. "From now on, just call me Big Crow, just like Yaoi." "Yeah." Zairi Hong nodded with some joy. Then, Dayu told Zairi Hong about the Fire Crow clan, focusing on the description of those barbarians who only cultivated their physiques and evolved their bloodlines at the same time. He also demonstrated to Zairi Hong the fighting style and abilities of the Fire Crow clan at the same time. He also asked Yuhi Kurenai to try to communicate with the spirit world before leaving. Daya glanced at Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai, and sighed in his heart. "That's great, we can be summoned to show off. There is one more person to fight." After the crow left, Zairi Hong looked at the wooden stake that had been burned to ashes and took a deep breath. The crow simply demonstrated it and actually burned the wooden stake to ashes in just a moment. If this burns on a person's body, won't the person die instantly without being infected? If you don't use force when throwing the kunai, you won't be able to pierce these wooden stakes. But the raven burned the stakes to ashes in an instant. Even though Zairi Hong didn't know much about the gap between them, she knew it was terrifying. But unfortunately, his chakra could not summon a big crow, and could only summon an ordinary fire crow. Although it is also very powerful, it is far inferior to the great crow. However, I believe that as long as I have more chakra, I will be able to summon the raven. The strength of the Fire Crow clan is linked to the natural energy in their bodies. The more natural energy they have, the more chakra is required to summon spirits. Similarly, the strength of these fire crows will become stronger. Those fire crows that specialize in cultivating their bloodlines depend entirely on their body size. The larger the body, the more chakra it consumes. This is the law of conservation of energy. This is also applicable in the Naruto world. After finishing the matter with the Fire Crow clan, Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai left, and Might Guy still stays here. He wants to spend his youth wantonly and let his sweat soak this land. This is the place where youth is spent. Mighty Dai's training method was extremely stressful and could easily cause hidden injuries, so he developed a special method for his son's training. However, it will still cause the accumulation of hidden injuries. In other words, this training method is exchanging future lifespan for strength. Might Guy has practiced physical skills for most of his life. Even if he was exploring alone, he had discovered many mistakes and loopholes. Therefore, in Might Guy, the 8 gates ninjutsu he practiced was actually more perfect. This is also the reason why, although both of them are the death gate among the 8 gates, Might Guy can only kick the 7 ninja swordsmen into the 3 auspicious treasures, while Might Guy can almost kick them out to the finale with 1 kick. Each generation is better than the previous one. However, although Might Guy's training method is to exchange lifespan for strength, it is ultimately the accumulation of hidden injuries from long-term training. As a member of the Uzumaki clan, Uchiha is least afraid of this kind of thing. His strong recovery ability means he doesn't need to worry about hidden injuries no matter what happened. No matter how hard or tiring it was, he just needed to get some sleep and he would be full of energy the next day. The world of blood is so powerful. Walking on the way home with Kurenai, Uchiha suddenly remembered what Uzumaki Kushina had said before, asking him to practice chakra control ability. To be honest, sealing techniques are very abnormal in this world. After all, it is something that can seal the ancestor of chakra. Since the sealing technique has no solution, can this thing be used to lock the essence? As Yuki Yuichi was thinking, his thoughts drifted to an unknown place. Then he realized what he was thinking. His face turned red, and he glanced at Zihong beside him calmly and threw the idea away. But the seeds were planted. He must learn this sealing technique well. Not only must he learn it, but he must master it. At the very least, he must be able to develop the sealing technique. Nothing else. I can only say that those who understand will understand, and those who don't understand won't understand even if I tell them. When Yuki Yuichi was thinking, Yuhi Kurenai turned her head and looked at him curiously. Yuichi, what's wrong with you? Your face is so red. Is it because the mental backlash from this morning hasn't healed yet? As Yuhi Kurenai said this, she began to worry and pulled his hand and ran towards home. Let's go find Dad. Letting himself be pulled, Yuki Yuichi looked at Yuhi Kurenai, who was running in front of him holding his hand, and smiled. It seems that such an ordinary life is also good, having a few acres of land, working from sunrise to sunset, facing the sea, with flowers blooming in spring. This is his dream, ordinary yet real, simple yet pure. This is the restlessness engraved in the soul of the Chinese people. If you fail in life, find a few acres of land, grow something, and live a stable life. If you are successful in life, find a few acres of land, achieve fame and fortune, grow something, and live a peaceful retirement. Achievement, ordinary life. I just want to farm quietly, but if someone covets me, my ninjutsu will not be in vain. If you don't let me farm, then I will plant you in the ground. Reward, sunset red, kimono, sunset red, kimono. Skills, 3 colors, illusion, xia, magic, binding. Skill 1, tricolor. Create a large area of red leaves to interfere with the side of targets within 10 meters, and teleport to the designated target at the same time. But please note that you can only teleport in front of the enemy. Skill 2, illusion, xia. Creates an illusion of oneself, attacks forward, and explodes in the surrounding area if it is touched by an enemy. Skill 3, magic binding. Pull the enemy into an illusion, bind them to the trunk of a red leaf tree, and cause mental damage. The repeated attack process lasts for 1 hour. Maybe you can try to compete with a filial son Itachi to see whether Tsukuyomi tortures you to death or you torture him to death. The update the day after tomorrow will be the time to decide on the recommendation. I beg you to read it the day after tomorrow, please. Chapter 68 Eye Drops, Uchiha, Sharingan. By the time we got home, it was already dark. The sun has completely sunk into the distant mountains, and only a few spots of light are scattered in the sky above Konoha, telling of the glory of the day. When Yuhi Shinku saw Yuhi Kurenai and Yuki Yuichi hurriedly running home, she thought something big had happened and jumped up from the sofa. What happened? Yuhi Shiku's tone was hurried, and she looked at the two of them anxiously. Yuhi Kurenai ran out of breath, gasping for breath, unable to utter a word. However, Yuchi Yuichi looked at him and smiled. We are fine, Hong is just worried that the trauma I suffered from the shadow clone this morning has recurred. That's why I'm anxious." Hearing this, Yuhi Shinku looked him up and down, then shook her head. He had never heard of a recurrence of mental trauma. Nothing happened. You can ignore it. Mental trauma is not physical injury. There is no such thing as non-recurrence. The food is ready. Yuhi Shinku pointed to the covered bowl on the table and said, "Go and eat." When Yuki Yuichi woke up, he observed that this guy was in great condition and there was no need for him to worry about him at all. Hearing his words, Yuki looked at the dishes covered with other bowls on the table, nodded, and then pulled over Kurenai, who was still trying to struggle and tell Yuhi Shinku about her injuries. Nothing happened that night, and in the blink of an eye it was already daytime. Yuki Yuichi only took one afternoon off, and Yuhi Shinku thought he was fine and kicked him out directly. "Yuichi, are you really okay?" Kurenai was still a little worried. She has not forgotten how Yuki Yuichi's face suddenly turned red when he returned home yesterday afternoon. In her heart, Yuki Yuichi must still be feeling very uncomfortable and his trauma has not healed yet. "I'm really fine." Seeing her look, Yuki Yuichi felt helpless. He couldn't say that he was thinking about whether he could use sealing techniques to assist in sex yesterday afternoon. It would be fine if he told this to Kakashi Hatake, but he doesn't have the nerve to tell it to Kurenai Yuhi. Although he actually looks shameless enough. The two walked towards the Hokage rock training ground, but Yuki looked at some people around him strangely. "Red, did you see that? These people look so weird." Yuki Yuichi leaned close to Kurenai's ear and motioned for her to look at the people around her. Upon hearing this, Hong nodded. She had noticed these things a long time ago. "I just did some calculations." Kurenai puffed out her chest with some pride. "These people with strange behaviors are all wearing Uchiha clothes," Kurenai said, pointing at the man in front of them. "The Uchiha clan emblem is engraved on it." This Uchiha behaved a little strangely. He looked around from time to time, but he pretended to be upright. These two completely different feelings are the source of the weirdness. "Empty fire, what are you doing?" Sneakily, just as Yuki Yuichi and Kurenai were observing the Uchiha in front of them, a voice came from behind them. "Ah, it's okay, I'm fine." The man called Suho was panicked at first, then he coughed lightly. Don't you have to be on duty today?" When Yuki heard the voice behind him, he subconsciously turned around and saw two Uchiha people talking there. "This is not a rumor from before. Our captain actually believed it and gave us a day off, saying that he was going to buy eye drops for his child. This is hilarious." Uchiha Yu laughed loudly, while holding Uchiha Kayuka's shoulders. "Is there anyone who believes that you can awaken the Sharingan by persisting in using eye drops? No way, no way, there really can't be such a fool, right?" Uchiha Yu said this and patted Uchiha Zuho's shoulder hard. "Haha. Yes. How could anyone believe such a rumor?" Uchiha Kayuka had the eye drops in his pocket into his sleeve and answered somewhat awkwardly. Seeing this scene, Yuki Yuichi suddenly didn't know what to say. A few key words caught him off guard. "Uchiha, eye drops, Sharingan. Hong, let's get going." Having said that, Yuki Yuichi pulled Kurenai and walked away quickly. What Yuki Yuichi heard, Kurenai naturally heard as well at the same time. She also understood why so many Uchiha people were acting sneaky and strangely today. When Yuki Yuichi talked to Yuhi Shinku about the way he opened his eyes, he did not avoid her. She naturally also knew that Yuki Yuichi used eye drops to accidentally open the Sharingan. When she heard the two Uchiha talking behind her, she reacted earlier than Yuki Yuichi. When the two of them walked to the bottom of the Hokage rock and were about to go up, Yuki Yuichi seemed to have thought of something, looked at Kurenai and scratched his head. "Hong, do you have any money left?" Hearing his words, Hong was stunned, then fumbled in her pocket for a moment and took out a silver note worth 1,000 taels. "I still have 1,000 taels. Do you need it, Yuichi?" Kurenai asked, but she directly stuffed the money into Yuichi's hands. Looking at the money in his hand, Yuichi sighed. "This amount of money was far from enough. It seems that I have to go back to my old job." Thinking of this, Yuichi handed the money back to Kurenai. "I'm just asking. I want to buy some training equipment, but I don't seem to have any money with me." "Ah," Hong exclaimed. "What should we do then? Why don't we go back and ask Dad for money now?" Kurenai said, looking at Yuichi seriously. "Dad has a lot of money." Seeing this, Yuichi shook his head and said, "It's okay. I have a way. If we go back now and come back again, it will definitely take up a lot of time." Having said that, he went straight into the ninja tool shop next door. A moment later, under the boss's smiling gaze, Yuichi walked out. However, when he came out, he was holding two dumbbells in his hands and looked very tired. Seeing this, Hong hurried forward to help carry it. However, When she tried to pick it up, she was stunned. She lifted it tentatively a few times and found that it was not as heavy as she had imagined. She looked at Yuki Yuichi with curiosity, but he just shook his head and signaled to her to wait until they got to the training ground. After the two walked away, the owner of the ninja tool shop finally put away his smile, but his face was still full of joy. He held a piece of paper in his hand and said to a handyman next to him, "Go to Zihi's house and find the real red Jonin to settle the price." As he said this, he handed the note in his hand to the handyman. "Remember, don't be rude, okay? Don't worry, boss. I know." If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 69, Loud and Can Get Gold Coins. Yuichi, how did you buy these things? Kurenai was holding two dumbbells and lifting them up from time to time, but Yuki Yuichi still seemed to be restricted in his movements. Hearing her words, Yuki Yuichi took a deep breath, adjusted his breathing, and then replied, "I asked the boss to find Uncle Zhenhong to settle the bill. Sigh, this load is really heavy." Yuki Yuichi punched twice on the body, making a sound of metal. It looked like he just bought two dumbbells, but he actually also bought a set of weights. This is what he uses to assist in his practice as to whether it will hinder my growth. The Uzumaki clan is tough. His powerful recovery ability gave him the confidence to be fearless. As long as the nutrition is adequate, there will be no problem. He specifically asked Yuhi Shinku about this matter last night. After all, it would be better to ask Yuhi Shinku, who is a senior ninja, instead of practicing blindly by yourself. If you have such people around you and don't take advantage of them, you'd be a fool. Even though Yuhi Shinku is a ninja of the illusion type, he is still a Jonin. After all, it is far beyond my comparison. Seeing Yuki's uncomfortable look, Kurenai shrugged her nose. She also had to practice hard and couldn't fall too far behind. When the two walked to the training ground, Might Guy was already there looking at my guy who was already sweating. Yuki realized at this moment that hard work is indeed a kind of genius. Being able to persevere and train hard for many years, isn't this a kind of talent? Even though his external talent is not high, just like what my guy and Leo said, geniuses are different from each other, and Leo is a genius who works hard. This sentence can actually also be applied to Might Guy or Might I. Feeling someone looking at him, Might Guy looked up and saw that it was Yuki Yuichi and Kurenai. He immediately stood up and shouted excitedly, "Yuichi, let's start our youthful morning exercises." Yuki naturally would not refuse Might Guy's invitation. After all, he had already made up his mind to practice physical skills to strengthen his physique. After all, practicing the Fire Crow Clan's Sage mode requires a strong physique. However, the ability to control chakra cannot be neglected. And Chidori's rationalization 8 shadow clones would cause mental trauma to him, but even so, he would just need to get some sleep. He just didn't believe that these 2 shadow clones could kill him in an instant. Thinking of this, he directly formed a seal, and as 2 streams of smoke rose, 3 Yuki appeared in the training ground. Looking at the 2 shadow clones, Yuchi said, "Do you know today's mission?" "I know, X2." After taking a look at the original body, the 2 shadow clones looked at each other, then ran to the edge of the training ground and began their tasks. One person began to practice chakra control, and the other person released lightning chakra, forming an arc in his hand. This is the preparation that Yuki made for himself. It would make sense to continue like this for a year or 2 and then develop Chidori. Right, the training process has also taken place and the ninjutsu has also been formed. No one can find any fault with it. I just think of myself as a genius, and with Uzumaki, Kushina and Yuhi Shinku as his backers, he didn't have to worry about entering that huge route at all. The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki no longer needs to maintain relationships. The backup Jinchuriki was given to Danzo. The owner of the Sharingan doesn't want it anymore. No matter whether Sarutobi Hiruzen is the great and glorious man described in the official book or the conspirator in the fanfiction, under the influence of these factors, it is impossible for him to hand himself over to Danzo. Yuki expressed his relief. In fact, the more talented he is, the happier Sarutobi Hiruzen might be. After all, in a broad sense, he is also a member of the Hokage faction. Thinking of this, Yuchi shouted, "Youth is all about hard work. Every morning that you don't dance is a blasphemy to your youth. Come on." After looking at Yuki for a long time, Kurenai suddenly lowered her head at the dumbbells in her hand, and for some reason she began to feel a little worried. "Will Yaoichi wear the green dress someday?" Kurenai murmured softly, and Hatake Kakashi appeared behind her without her knowing. "What green clothes?" Hatake Kakashi said, looking up, and for a moment he didn't know what to say just now. He was blocked by Kurenai Yuhi, and he did not see Uchiha Yuki and Might Guy who were working hard to show their youth in the training ground. Is he stimulated? Said Kakashi Hatake, looking at Uchiha Yuki with some pity. Is this because of the shadow clone incident yesterday that hurt your brain? He had originally wanted to have a fight with Yuki Yuichi today to avenge him for the betrayal he had done to him, but seeing him like this, I thought about it and decided to give up thinking of this. Kakashi Hatake took out his unsharpened ninja sword from the ninja tool cabinet. However, when he picked up the ninja sword, he suddenly realized a problem. If Uchiha Yuki becomes Might Guy, will he also come to bother me? Thinking of this, Hatake Kakashi couldn't help but shudder. No. Will not. Yuki Yuichi is not that kind of person. Well, definitely not. Kakashi Hatake looked again at Uchiha Yuki, who was training with Might Guy, and silently comforted himself in his heart. Yuichi, you can't look like this. Might Guy looked at Yuki Yuichi, whose hands were shaking, and shook his head. You look too weak. What men can't tolerate the most is words like you can't do it and you're too weak. Yuki Yuichi immediately stood up and punched himself in the chest twice. Might Guy suddenly realized what was happening when he heard the sound similar to steel caused by the knocking. This is weight bearing. He knows it. His father also had weights, and he wore them. But his father's weights were too heavy for him to wear. His family didn't have extra money to buy suitable weights for him, so he could only rely on his own hard training. I'm carrying a 50-pound load. Once I get used to it, I'll change to something heavier. Yuki Yuichi's purpose is just to strengthen his body. He had already imagined what he would look like when the battle began. With his whole body covered in flames, being strong is temporary, but being handsome is a lifelong thing. And only powerful strength can allow him to protect the people he wants to protect. Kai? Keep practicing hard. Although I can't keep up with you now, one day, when I wear weights, I will be able to keep up with your speed. Woo woo woo. You are worthy of being the only rival in my life. I will never let you and Kakashi surpass me too far. As he spoke, Might Guy laid on the ground and moved up and down rapidly, but this time he was doing push-ups while crying not far away. Hatake Kakashi paused while swinging his sword and looked at the two of them expressionlessly. I have decided to recommend tomorrow's update. Please read it. I beg you. Oz 2. Chapter 70, Thunder Shatters the Darkness. Kakashi Hatake couldn't hold it in any longer. You two can just talk. Why do you have to involve me? He even fantasized that there would be two young guys clinging to him in the future, and if you two just want to talk, why do you have to speak so loudly so that I can hear you? As he thought about it, he swung his knife even faster. Just then, Uchiha Obito arrived late. He looked around subconsciously and was about to speak when he suddenly realized that one person was missing. Realizing this, Uchiha Obito suddenly became excited. Asuma hasn't come yet. I'm not here last this time. No one knows how sad he feels every time he is told he is late after helping an elderly person. No one wants to be accused of being late all the time. Even Uchiha Obito is no exception. Glancing at him, Hatake Kakashi, who is already upset by Yuki Yuichi and Might Guy, immediately said, Asuma is the last one to come today, and you're different. You do this every day. Kakashi Hatake's words were like a sharp knife stabbing into his heart. Uchiha Obito's face was visibly flushed. Damn Kakashi, today I, Obito, will teach you a lesson. Haha. Kakashi Hatake sneered, which made Uchiha Obito, who is already blushing and angry, even more angry. I've disliked you since the beginning of the school year. Uchiha Obito said this, pulling up his sleeves with his hands. Let me see what you are like. Rather than saying that he dislikes Hatake Kakashi, it would be more accurate to say that he has no confidence in himself from the first day of school. He noticed that Nahara-rin treated Kakashi a little differently. This increased his sense of crisis. Come on. The last one, damn it, I'm not the last one, Uchiha Obito roared, and then rushed directly towards Hatake Kakashi. He seemed to have anticipated Uchiha Obito's actions. The moment he got close to him, Hatake Kakashi also moved forward with a wooden sword in his hand. Their actions made Uchiha Yuki and Might Guy, who were training hard, and Kurenai Yuhi, who was paying attention to them, stop what they were doing. We have been training together for such a long time, but we haven't had much physical contact. They only fought once at the beginning, and then they trained themselves in ninjutsu or swordsmanship. Obito, come on, Kakashi, you too. When Might Guy saw the two men fighting, he started shouting, come on. However, the two men who were fighting had no time to pay attention to Might Guy. When Kakashi Hatake swung his sword to attack, Uchiha Obito's eyes turned. And when the sword was about to make contact, he rolled over to avoid it. He actually dodged it. Kakashi Hatake couldn't help but be surprised when he saw Uchiha Obito standing up again. Last time he had hit this guy directly on the head without any pressure, and he had expected it to be like this. It seems like we need to be more serious. Hatake Kakashi looked at Uchiha Obito and thought to himself, but he still didn't take it seriously. Asshole, let me show you our Uchiha's fire style. Art Fire Escape Ho Fireball. As he spoke, Uchiha Obito quickly formed hand seals and then gathered his chakra in his throat. Seeing this, Kakashi Hatake narrowed his eyes slightly, then bent his body and rushed out just when Uchiha Obito was about to finish. His speed was extremely fast, although not as fast as the instant body technique, but Uchiha Obito still couldn't react before the condensed fire chakra was released. Hatake Kakashi directly slashed his chest with a knife, causing him to fall to the ground. The fireball that he was about to spit out was interrupted, and he almost died in one breath. Cough cough. Falling to the ground, Uchiha Obito couldn't help coughing, and every time he coughed, warm black smoke would come out. Asshole Kakashi, you actually sneak attacked me. Upon hearing this, Hatake Kakashi snorted coldly and ignored him. Seeing that the two of them were done, Yuki number 2 ran over carrying a medical kit. Stop talking, your voice is hoarse. As he spoke, Yuki number 2 stuffed a small pill from the medical box into his mouth. To treat throat injuries, use Nara's cough pills. They are very effective. Yuki number 2 is Yuki Yuichi's second shadow clone. This is also the number of his shadow clones, starting from number 1 and continuing there. Yuki number 1 was concentrating on practicing chakra control. When he saw Yuki number 2 running away, he just looked up at him and then started his own training hard. Yuki number 2 is completely different from him. Although he was developing Chidori, in fact he already knew how to do it. He just needed to pretend to condense the lightning release chakra, but even though he was just pretending, he was actually practicing. After all, he couldn't just condense the chakra and not move. Uchiha Obito, who was stuffed with a small pill, looked at Yuki number 2 with emotion and said in a hoarse voice, "You are so nice, young man, you still need to practice." Hearing Uchiha Obito's grateful voice, Yuki number 2 shook his head and raised his hand, transforming all the chakra in his body into lightning chakra, and then gathered it on his right arm. For a moment, the entire training ground was illuminated by lightning, and even in the daytime, it was particularly dazzling. Uchiha Obito, who was already sitting on the ground, saw this scene, his mouth slightly opened, and for a moment he didn't know what to say. What a huge chakra! Hatake Kakashi saw this scene and thought to himself, but he did not forget that this was just a shadow clone. Just one shadow clone has such a huge amount of chakra. He no longer dared to imagine how much chakra Yuki Yuichi had. After slightly sensing the chakra in his body, he suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. Judging from the performance of this shadow clone and the effect of the concentrated lightning chakra, even if there were 10 of you and you used up all your chakra, you wouldn't be able to do it, right? Just as he was thinking silently, Yuki number 2 suddenly spoke. Darkness covers everything. I am the only light, and I will shatter the darkness with thunder, lightning flashes. Oh. Hearing what Yuki number 2 said, Uchiha Obito howled in a hoarse voice, "This looks so handsome." But before he could exclaim for long, the shadow clone that was holding up the lightning disappeared instantly. Yuki Yuichi, who was with Might Guy, was looking at this speechlessly, and suddenly felt a surge of memories. "This is me. Alice." Yuki Yuichi wanted to say something but stopped, and finally let out a long sigh. "This was the first time I saw a shadow clone that pretended to be cool and exhausted its own chakra and dissipated." This made him start to ponder, am I really that out of touch, or will the shadow clone completely let go of itself when it is separated? Yuki thought for a long time and finally came to a conclusion: the clones created by the shadow clone technique are all fools who let themselves go. Chapter 71. I don't want to be a waste. However, Uchiha Obito was lying on a bench in the rest area. The knife attack from Kakashi Hatake made him feel a little uncomfortable. Even after some time had passed, his chest still ached. When Asuma Saratobi finally arrived at the training ground, the scene he saw was Might Guy practicing and shouting about youth, while Yuki Yuichi was slowly moving his body beside him. Hatake Kakashi was staring blankly at the spot where he was concentrating chakra in his palm. The shadow clones of Kurenai, Yuhi and Yuki are training their chakra control abilities. Where's Obito? Asuma Saratobi did not notice Obito lying in the corner of the rest area. I thought he hadn't come yet, so I couldn't help but complain. Is it possible that I came so late today and Obito hasn't come yet? I am here. When Uchiha Obito heard his voice, he raised his hands somewhat unconvinced and sat up from the bench. The movement involved his injury, causing him to grimace a little. but it was much better than the severe pain at the beginning because of the frequent wars and the chaos everywhere before. The medicine for injuries in this world is much better. Hearing Uchiha Obito's voice, Sarutobi Asuma was stunned. He looked in the direction of the voice and Uchiha Obito's figure came into view. "What's wrong with you?" "It's okay. I just fell down." "Really?" Sarutobi Asuma looked at him suspiciously. "I don't believe it. No matter how you look at it, his injuries don't look like they were caused by a fall. This is fooling fools." But since Uchiha Obito didn't say anything, he didn't intend to ask. Most of the time, they were beaten because of sparring. "Then you should have a good rest." "I want to fully master the Heian today." Asuma Sarutobi said this, running to the center of the training ground and began practicing fire release. "There's a stake missing, but it's not a big problem. Training is boring." The morning passed in a flash. After taking off the weight on his body and throwing it aside, Yuki breathed a sigh of relief. "This thing is really too heavy, but practicing this way is the most effective." Kurenai appeared beside him at some point, glanced at Yuki Yuichi with his upper body exposed, and her face blushed slightly. Yuki Yuichi knew what Kurenai said. "I just took it off to relax." As he spoke, Yuichi's eyes flashed with a hint of ferocity, and he gritted his teeth and said, "I will wear this weight-bearing device for the rest of my life." If a person is not ruthless, he cannot stand firm. He has a cheat and dual bloodline in this world. You are a person who is blessed by nature. If you still don't work hard, then what is the difference between you and a waste? The system, template, Vortex physique, and Uchiha Sharingan are all in one. He doesn't want to be a waste. After hearing his words, not only Kurenai couldn't bear to watch it, even Might Guy was a little shocked. "Will this affect your life?" "You'll get used to it." Yuki took a deep breath and picked up the weight again after putting on the weights and clothes. Yuki was just about to ask for dinner when Kakashi Hatake came over. Seeing Hatake Kakashi coming over, Might Guy showed his shining teeth and gave a thumbs up. "Kakashi, we..." Before he could finish his words, Hatake Kakashi interrupted him and said, "I plan to apply for early graduation. Do you want to come along?" Everyone was stunned by what Hatake Kakashi said, looking at his appearance. Yuki thought for a moment. It seemed that this guy graduated shortly after entering school. Thinking of this, Yuki suddenly didn't quite understand. What's the point of Hatake Kakashi graduating so early? Yuki looked at him and asked curiously, "Why do you want to graduate so early?" Looking at Yuki, Hatake Kakashi clenched his fists and said, "Of course it's to become stronger. I want to become even stronger. Carry forward the Hatake swordsmanship." Hatake Kakashi said this, although his expression couldn't be seen due to the mask, but from the light in his eyes, it was the high spirits of a young man. "But, can you become stronger if you go to a different school?" This is what puzzled Yuki. "If you want to pursue strength, then wouldn't it be possible to improve your strength by practicing hard here?" As for whether he could improve his strength, Yuki never thought about it at all. "Look who's gathered here." Obito of the Uchiha clan, Asuma Sarutobi, the son of the third Hokage, the daughter and adopted son of the illusion-type Jonin Yuhi Shinku, the son of Konoha White Fang, and the Might Guy father and son who mastered the 8 gates of Taijutsu. And there was Kushina Uzumaki behind him. With these people behind them, they don't have to worry about having no one to guide or protect them. Uchiha Obito should be excluded. After all, he only has one grandmother, but apart from that, the elders of other people are all well-known figures. Moreover, this lineup can be said to include illusion techniques, ninjutsu, physical techniques, sealing techniques, and eye techniques. Apart from gaining more practical experience and being able to see blood sooner, he couldn't think of any way that would make him stronger by graduating early. After hearing what Yuki said, Kakashi Hatake wanted to refute, but when the words came to his lips, he didn't know how to start, and suddenly fell silent. Seeing that he was silent, Yuki started counting on his fingers. "Let me calculate it for you. We are now training and practicing here every morning. Although we are on our own, we can go back and ask the elders for advice. You don't have to worry about taking the wrong road. You can also ask your family for supplies for cultivation. Although I have to go to school in the afternoon, I have tried it. I can put my hands under the desk in the afternoon to practice my chakra control, and if you graduate now, you will start taking on missions. You will have to kill people or protect others. Although the mission doesn't come every day, it will still take up a lot of your time. And can your team leader be more powerful than your father? Will he teach you without reservation, just like your father?" When Yuki said this, Hatake Kakashi fell completely silent. He only thought about graduating early so that he could become a real ninja, but he didn't expect there were so many things to pay attention to, and he thought Yuki Yuichi said something very good. His team leader may not be as good as his father, nor will he be as unreserved as his father. Kakashi, stay. Might Guy looked at him, this time with a firm look in his eyes. Although graduating early is good, it means that you don't have enough ninja knowledge. Although Might Guy usually looks silly, he actually knows everything in his heart. Ninja schools don't teach anything useful right now, but this is just the beginning. They have no idea about assassination, protection, poisoning, and the like. Being a ninja is not just a profession that involves fighting and killing. Not mastering these things means that this ninja isn't illiterate among ninjas. Chapter 72. What a great relationship. It seems that he was convinced seeing his appearance. Yuki breathed a sigh of relief. But it wasn't that he didn't want Kakashi Hatake to graduate early, but I feel regretful. In his opinion, it would be better for Kakashi Hatake to train in the ninja school for a few more years. It will be good to learn more and practice peacefully for a few more years. There are few people here that he truly considers as friends. Kakashi Hatake is very talented. You should know that he has an achievement cheat, but even so, this guy Kakashi could catch up quickly if this kind of genius, who is comparable to himself, could practice steadily for a few years. He would never have imagined how terrifying this guy would be in the future. Although it is glorious to graduate early, you are sacrificing your potential at your age. You should be quietly improving your strength, but you insist on going out to kill people. It seems very strange. No matter how you look at it, this is because Kakashi Hatake has good talent. So in the original work he seemed to be depressed because of a series of blows. He entered school at the age of 5, graduated in the same year, became a chunin at the age of 6, and a jonin at the age of 12. It can be seen from the time it took him to become a jonin that Hatake Kakashi actually wasted a lot of time. Let's go and eat. Yeah, Kakashi Hatake nodded after hearing this, and at the same time thought about what Yuki said in his heart. He still agrees with some of these things, however, there were some things he didn't understand. So he planned to go back and ask his father. Yuki Yuichi and Hatake Kakashi walked in front. Kurenai follows Yuki Yuichi. Might Guy and the other two walked behind. The shadow clone not far away saw that today's training was completed, breathed a sigh of relief, and disappeared on the spot. Obito, how are you now? Asuma Sarutobi saw Uchiha Obito catching up and asked with concern, are you okay? I'm fine. Uchiha Obito's voice was still hoarse, but much better than before, and the pain in his chest had mostly dissipated. All I can say is that the effects of medicines in the ninja world are surprisingly good. I'm glad you're okay. Upon hearing that, Asuma Sarutobi smiled and put his arm around his shoulders, patting him hard a few times. Uchiha Obito immediately grimaced, asshole, I just don't feel as much pain anymore. Seeing his bared teeth, Sarutobi Asuma smiled awkwardly. I'll let you fight back next time, damn bastard. Damn Kakashi, I will definitely beat you two up. Uchiha Obito's bold words made Hatake Kakashi, who was walking in front, couldn't help but turn his head, glanced at him, and slowly uttered 3 words, the last one, damn it. Hearing Hatake Kakashi's ridicule, Uchiha Obito's eyes widened with anger. Just wait, I will definitely defeat you in front of Lin. Hatake Kakashi, he was a little confused by Uchiha Obito's words. Who is Lin? However, although he was confused, when he saw Uchiha Obito's expression, he just curled his lips. The tail of the crane is the tail of the crane. You'll never be better than me in your life. Seeing the interaction between the two, Yuki moved closer to Hibiscus without saying a word. They have a really good relationship. Upon hearing this, Kurenai looked at Uchiha Obito and Hatake Kakashi, then nodded in agreement. Obito and Kakashi have a really good relationship, Kurenai, he said. Tilting her head. Zehong's words seemed to have aroused the rebellious psychology of the two people. They said in unison, I don't have a good relationship with this guy. Yuki Yuichi heard this and looked at everyone with a smile. Look, you guys, we are so in sync when talking. Damn it, X2 don't imitate me. X2 HMPH, X2 ha. Asuma Sarutobi laughed so hard that he couldn't straighten his back, and he said that you two don't have a good relationship. Yeah, Might Guy also nodded. This is youth. Then Might Guy yelled, oh who? Youth with friends. Amid the frustrated expressions of Hatake Kakashi and Uchiha Obito, everyone walked down the mountain talking and laughing. Yuki Yuichi and a few others were chatting and laughing, while Uchiha Obito was still arguing with Hatake Kakashi. Looking at the two of them, Yuki Yuichi smiled. Days like this are nice, aren't they? Needless to say, life in the afternoon classes is monotonous. After school in the afternoon, Yuki Yuichi and Kurenai went straight home. When they got home, Yuhi Shinku was standing in the living room with a gloomy face, waiting for them. Seeing Yuhi Shiku's look, Yuchi Yuichi thought of what happened in the morning, swallowed his saliva, and forced a smile. "We are back." Zihi's Henhong still stared at him with a sneer, holding a white note in her hand. "Yuchi, can you tell me what this says?" Handing the note to Yuki Yuichi, Yuhi Shinku gave a kind smile. Yuchi Yuki just glanced at the note in his hand and coughed lightly. He knew what it was without reading the content. A boomerang thrown in the morning turned into a bullet in the evening and hit him right between the eyebrows. Seeing this, Yuhi Kurenai was not stupid. She immediately stood in front of Yuki Yuichi and opened her arms to block Yuhi Mikuru. "This is what I want to buy, Dad. Don't say that about Yaoichi." After looking at Yuhi Kurenai, then at Yuki Yuichi, Yuhi Makoto finally looked at the 50 kilograms weight written on the note in her hand. "He's not stupid yet. A 50 kilogram weight. And you tell me that this is the one you bought for your sweet little cotton padded jacket? What about fooling the ghost?" However, seeing the way Zirihong was protecting her child, Ziri's Henhong felt a little depressed. "This doesn't seem to be my little cotton padded jacket." Yuhi Shinku was lost in memories for a moment. It is said that a daughter is a father's sweet and warm friend, but it seems that everything has changed since the little brat Yuki Yuichi came to her home. Although Hong was only 1 year old at the time, she did not show any characteristics of a little girl. But ever since they could talk, his daughter has always been protecting Yuki Yuichi in front of him. Thinking of this, Ziri Zhenhong felt that she had been cheated. "This is not my sweet and caring little cotton padded jacket. This is my black-hearted little cotton padded jacket." Seeing the changeable face of Yuhi Shinku, Yuki Yuichi felt something was wrong. As expected, Yuhi Shinku woke up from her memories, glared at Yuki Yuichi fiercely, and threw the note in her hand on the table. "Eat quickly. I'll teach you some taijutsu later." Although taijutsu is only a last resort for us ninjas, we still have to train seriously. Not only Yuki Yuichi, but even Yuhi Kurenai could see through Yuhi Shiku's little plan. But seeing her old father's expression, Zirihong still felt it was better not to refute. Chapter 73. Don't doubt it. That's not me anymore. Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai have the same idea. "It looks like I'm going to be beaten. However, this is also a good thing. Although Yuhi Shinku might take the opportunity to teach me a lesson, she is really teaching me." After dinner, Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Shinku stood in the courtyard. Yuki held a kunai in his hand, while Shinku Yuhi was unarmed. "As long as you can blow up my shadow clone, you will pass." The voice of Yuhi Shinku came from the side. There was only a layer of glass separating the courtyard from the house, and Yuhi Shinku and Yuhi Kurenai were standing here, similar to Nobita-Nobi's yard but without the clothes drying area. The one confronting Yuki was only his shadow clone looking at Yuhi Shiku's shadow clone. Yuki Yuichi still did not let his guard down no matter what. "This is a clone of a Jonin, and you can't defeat him by yourself unless you use a trap or a sneak attack with Chidori. Bring it on." The shadow clone has the personality of Yuhi Shinku, but is also unrestrained, and his malice towards Yuki Yuichi is visible to the naked eye. "Look at me, Crow, riding a plane." As Yuki Yuichi said this, he rushed out directly, holding kunai in both hands and rushing straight towards the shadow clone. Seeing this, Yuhi Shinku shook her head. "Aren't you looking for death by rushing out so stupidly?" Sure enough, seeing Yuki's actions, the shadow clone smiled and rushed out as well, with his hands behind his back. The moment the two men approached, the shadow clone suddenly twisted to the side, avoiding Yuki Yuichi's kunai, and then waved one hand towards his wrist, and the kunai instantly slipped out of his hand. Afterwards, he directly grabbed Yuki Yuichi's collar, exerted force with one foot, mobilized the muscles of his whole body, and used the strength of his waist to drive the muscles of his arms. "Fall down." The shadow clone said this, and used this powerful force to pull Yuki, trying to throw him to the ground. However, Yuki Yuichi was not panicked at this time, but instead showed a strange smile. "It's you who's going to fall. Uncle Zhenhong, this is a shadow clone, but it is also Yuhi Shinku, and the name of Yuki Yuichi has not changed at all." The shadow clone was very powerful. With just a swing, Yuki was lifted up. His back made a dull sound when it hit the ground, and dust rose up for a moment. But in the same way, the kunai that Yuki Yuichi had thrown away earlier turned at a strange angle behind the shadow clone, and then stabbed straight at the back of his head. There is a special light on the index finger of Yuki's right hand. "Is this a chakra thread?" Yuhi Shinku frowned. "Condensing chakra into a line and then controlling the shuriken or kunai is a skill that can usually only be mastered by Jinan who has graduated for 1 or 2 years. I didn't expect that Yuki actually mastered it. Is this kid really a genius?" Yuhi Shinku felt complicated thinking about this. Yuhi Kurenai didn't care about that. When she heard the chakra threads coming out of Yuhi Shiku's mouth, she was immediately excited. Yuchi, come on, give Dad a good beating. Yuhi Kurenai's words made Yuhi Shikuru couldn't help but look down and confirmed that this was the black-hearted AO. Meanwhile, the shadow clone seemed to sense the crisis and did not continue to chase Yuchi, but ran forward, but Kurenai was chasing him. Yuchi also stood up at this time, rubbed his shoulders, brushed off the dust on his body, and then rushed towards the shadow clone again. He activated the Ninjutsu defense the moment he was caught by the shadow clone. The LV3 ninjutsu defense can reduce damage by % when activated actively, although it was very painful just now. With a damage reduction, he was not seriously injured, just a slight pain in the back. This ability is still very powerful when dealing with blunt attacks. Yuhi Shiku watched from the side and sighed inwardly. What a monster is a Jonin. He was naturally very clear about the fall of Yuki Yuichi just now. The shadow clone did not use its full strength, but even so, it was not something that an ordinary Jonin could withstand, not to mention breaking bones. At the very least he would have to lie on the ground and wail for a few times. In the end, the kid got up and nothing happened. Yuhi Shiku could only attribute all this to the physique of the Uzumaki clan. The Whirlpool clan is indeed powerful. Zihong heard what he said beside him and looked up at him curiously, feeling her gaze and seeing that she didn't understand. Yuhi Shiku explained, the Uzumaki clan's physique is the strongest in the ninja world. They have strong recovery ability and vitality. Even if they are seriously injured, they can basically recover after a good night's sleep. The same thing goes for this brat. Yuhi Shiku said it simply, but Yuhi Shiku's focus was not here. Instead, she puffed up her cheeks and complained, Yuchi is not a brat. Sunset is really red. Zairi Kurenai's words made him at a loss for words, and at this moment, a glimmer of light seemed to appear on the red-haired man in the field. Damn red-haired devil. In the end, Yuki Yuichi was beaten up. Looking at Yuhi with a bruised face, Yuki couldn't help but complain in his heart, what about using shadow clones? Why are the real body and the shadow clone attacking together? Damn it, one day I will get revenge. Looking at Sunset Red, Yuki Yuichi thought silently in his heart, ignoring Yuki Yuichi's resentful eyes and Yuhi Kurenai's complaining eyes. Yuhi Makoto looked up at the sky and said, it's a lie that I will teach you taijutsu. This lesson is called trust. Zihi's Henhong stopped looking at the sky and said seriously, in the world of ninja, don't trust others, no. Don't trust anyone, lies are everywhere. Maybe the teammate you trusted was the one who killed you. Yuhi Shiku's words made Yuhi Hong take 2 steps back in horror. Can ninjas still kill each other? Yuki Yuichi asked with a frown. If I remember correctly, Naruto seems to be talking about partners and bonds of friendship, right? Seeing the appearance of Yuki Yuichi and Yuhi Kurenai, Yuhi Makoto's expression remained unchanged. We can't kill each other, but we can give you false information and let you die. In fact, Yuhi Shiku had seen such a person before. Because of friction, he deliberately gave false information to let people die, but he lied that the mission failed. Although those who fail in a mission will be punished, such people still exist. So, when you join the ninja team in the future, you need to keep an eye out for intelligence yourself. Yes, Zihi Shiku nodded. Watch more and pay more attention. Even for me, you can't trust me completely, because there are ninjutsu that can manipulate people in this world. If I ever ask you to die or go on a dangerous mission, don't doubt it. That's not me anymore, Yuhi Shiku said seriously. I will never put you two in danger, remember this, got it? Yuhi Kurenai and Yuki Yuichi looked at each other, then nodded at the same time, with the same serious expression. Next, we will fast forward. Chapter 74. Is it too precocious? 3 months passed in the blink of an eye. Looking at the full staff of students, Yumino Ikoku revealed a satisfied smile. During these 3 months, I completed 1 year's course. There weren't many courses in the first grade, and the main task was to teach them how to read and refine chakra. Zenbin Ichino, Yamamoto Senjin, you two have to work hard. Yumino Ikoku looked at the 2 students sitting in the front row with a serious expression. The teacher has finished teaching you the course in advance, and after the test, basically everyone in the class can already recognize the characters. You two are the only 2 in the class who haven't refined their chakra yet. If chakra is not extracted within the next 2 months, Yumino Ikoku did not continue. This is the rule of the ninja school. If you fail to extract chakra within half a year, you will have to drop out. This means that these people do not have the talent of a ninja, but you two don't have to worry. If you have any questions, you can come to my house or come to my office to find me. Ikoku Yumino looked at the 2 students and sighed silently in his heart. Although he said so, He had actually sentenced the 2 students to death. It has been almost 4 months since school started. They haven't been able to refine chakra in 4 months, which only means that they are not suitable to be ninjas. It is estimated that it will be impossible to extract chakra after this. The entrance examination for the ninja school is based on a combination of physical fitness, the use of ninja tools, and various indicators. Generally speaking, it is very unlikely that such students will be unable to extract chakra, but even so, more than a dozen students will be eliminated within the first 6 months of school every year, leaving only students with chakra. This is the rule. It's also for the safety of these people. A ninja student can already tease a group of adults to death. These students without chakra are destined to live a stable life in Konoha village. Yumino Ikoku's words did not embarrass the 2 men these days. They already know the character of Yumino Ikoku, and he is a good teacher. Zenbei Chino and Yamamoto Senjin looked at each other, then clenched their fists and looked at Yumino Ikoku. Teacher, we will definitely work hard. Yeah, Kano Ikoku nodded. Since these 2 were the only 2 people in the class who had not refined chakra, he put their seats in front of him. Before class starts, I can tell you a good news. Yumino Ikoku said this with a hint of pride on his face. Since most of you have already learned writing and chakra, Hokage-sama has allowed me to teach you the 2nd-year courses in advance. Great. It's forbidden. Great. I've had enough of this boring life, sensei. Can we learn ninjutsu now? Everyone's attention was drawn to Yumino Ikoku's words. Yuki Yuichi propped his chin with one hand, listening to everyone's discussion with boredom. Learning ninjutsu? You think too much? He knew that ninja schools only taught the 3 body techniques. As for the rest, I was learning physical skills and various things that a ninja needs to know. Although the existence of ninja schools has broken the shackles of civilians becoming ninjas, no one will teach you ninjutsu for no reason. At least in ninja schools, you will only be taught the 3 body techniques. If these big families could accept allowing commoners to become ninjas, they would not accept the spread of ninjutsu after becoming a ninja and being assigned a team leader, unless the team leader is kind and may teach you a few simple C-level ninjutsu. If you want ninjutsu, you must complete tasks to exchange for it. The requirement for exchanging ninjutsu is to exchange it with the level of the task. How many B-level tasks can be exchanged for 1 C-level ninjutsu or B-level ninjutsu? This is another function of task levels besides dividing rewards and dangers. Before you become a Jonin, the Hokage will not assign you any missions, and you can only go to the Hokage building to receive them on your own. As for the Jonin team in the original work, the mission was assigned by the Hokage himself. But no one looked at their backgrounds and identities as well as who the Jonin were who led the team. We will start the 2nd grade curriculum tomorrow, so this afternoon the teacher will tell you about the world of ninjas. Hearing this, Yuki Yuichi raised his eyelids and his expression became serious. He knew a little about the world of ninja in his previous life, but that was all he knew. Yuhi Shinku had never told these things to the 2 of them, of course. Warning them doesn't count except for Yuki Yuichi. Everyone else looked at Yumino Ikoku curiously. Even the ninja disciples sitting in the back row were no exception. After all, which adult would have nothing better to do than talk to his or her kids about the world of ninjas? So apart from the civilians, they actually have only a vague understanding of the world of ninjas. The only things that are stronger than these civilian ninjas are those with stronger physiques, more chakra, and better families. Yumino Ikoku cleared his throat and looked around, seeming to be satisfied with the expressions of his students. Can you tell me which big families there are in our ninja world? Yumino Ikoku said, looking at the people below. It's okay to tell students these things. After all, this is a 3rd grade course. As soon as Yumino Ikoku finished speaking, the classroom became noisy. I know. There's an Uchiha, Hyuga, I know that too. And Kurama and Aburame, Sarutobi, Inuzuka, Moonlight. Listening to her classmates' words, Yuhi Kurenai looked at Yuki Yuichi. Yuichi, last time Dad told me that you are the child of Uzumaki and Uchiha, right? Yeah, that's right. Yuki nodded, but why haven't I heard of the Uzumaki clan in Konoha? Kurenai blinked her big eyes and looked at Yuki Yuichi curiously. Yuhi Kurenai's words suddenly made Yuki not know how to respond. You can't say they're all dead, right? After thinking for a while, Yuki Yuichi said, I don't know, it should be a ninja clan outside Konoha. Last time, Sister Kushina told me that he and I were the only ones left in Konoha. Hearing this, Yuhi Kurenai nodded her head, and then she didn't know what she thought of. Her face suddenly turned red, and she said in a very small voice, then there will be more people in Konoha in the future, okay? Hearing her words, Yuki Yuichi was surprised at first, then frowned and looked at her, while thinking silently in his heart, is Hong too precocious? He's only 6 years old, and only 7 in his age. She actually started talking to me about having kids. Is this reasonable? It's worthy of you, Naruto world. Chapter 75. Then have more children in the future. Thinking about this, Yuki Yuichi suddenly leaned close to Yuhi Kurenai's ear and said, then give birth to more children in the future. Zihong's little face turned even redder, and she was as shy as a quail on the stage. The teacher coughed, and the noisy noise in the classroom disappeared. In this class, Umino Ichikoku is still very prestigious. Children in the ninja world are not only precocious in matters of love and sex, but also in other aspects. They all saw everything that Kano Ikoku did. The ninja students admired him, and the civilian students were grateful to him. You are all right, but you are talking about our big families in Konoha? There are also many ninja clans outside of Konoha, Kano Ikoku said, and looked around again before he spoke. For example, the Night Moon Clan, the Snow Clan, etc. Let's not talk about these for now. What the teacher wants to tell you is that if you encounter a special ninja in the future, you must be careful. Teacher, hearing his words, Nahor-Lin raised her hand. What is a special ninja? Kano showed an appreciative look, seeming to be very satisfied with Nahor-Lin's supporting role. So, called special ninjas are ninjas with special abilities. You may not know about the ninja clans outside the village, so let me talk about the ninja clans in Konoha, Umino Ikoku said, pointing to the white-eyed girl Hinata Natsu in the back row. The Hyuga clan that Hinata-san belongs to is a special group of ninjas. They have the Byakugan, which allows them to detect from a distance, and can see through the enemy's body and the flow of chakra. They also have the soft fist technique passed down from their family, and they are the elite among ninjas. Hiss. So powerful. When Hinata heard what Umino Ikoku said, she couldn't help but raise her head. Although she was a branch family and hated the main family in her heart, she couldn't help but feel proud when she heard others praising Byakugan. Teacher, hearing Kano Ikoku praising the Hyuga clan, Uchiha Obito couldn't sit still and retorted, how can the Hyuga clan be so powerful? No one can compare to this Uchiha? Uchiha Obito's words made Kano Ikoku feel uneasy. Oh no, he had forgotten about the conflict between Uchiha and Hyuga. Seeing Uchiha Obito's indignant look, Kano Ikoku could only force a smile. The Hyuga clan is very powerful, and the Uchiha clan is no worse. He didn't dare say that the Uchiha clan was stronger than the Hyuga clan, for fear that the Hyuga clan would cause trouble for him, but he also didn't dare say that the Hyuga clan was stronger than the Uchiha clan. The reason was the same as above. He was afraid that the Hyuga clan would cause trouble for him. The Uchiha clan possesses the bloodline limit of the Sharingan, which is very powerful. They can copy the enemy's ninjutsu and then attack the enemy. At the same time, most of the Uchiha clan are proficient in fire escape techniques. They are a very powerful family in Konoha. Kano Ikoku briefly mentioned the Uchiha clan and then stopped talking. Let's go outside the village. He needs to go back and think about it, and pay attention to these things in class next time. Seeing Umino Ikoku's appearance, Yuki Yuichi couldn't help but laugh out loud. Yuchi-san, what are you laughing at? Teacher, I'm not laughing, I just thought of happy things. Yuki Yuichi was talking nonsense in a serious tone. Umino Ikoku looked at him suspiciously. He didn't believe that Yuki Yuichi was laughing for no reason. He must be making fun of him as his teacher. Thinking about it, he immediately said with a straight face, now please ask the happy Yuichi to answer the teacher's question. Please tell me the information of a ninja tribe outside the village. Glancing at Ikoku Umino, Yuchi Yuji stood up and said, the Uzumaki clan is proficient in sealing techniques, has a strong physique, and strong vitality. Umino Ikoku didn't think Yuki Yuichi would say it, and didn't pay attention to his words at all. In that case, then you go out and stand. At this point, Ikoku Umino reacted and realized that Yuki Yuichi seemed to have mentioned the ninja clan. However, the Uzumaki clan is a ninja clan that has been destroyed. And there is only one Uzumaki left in the village, Kushina Uzumaki. Thinking of this, Umino Ikoku shook his head. Although the Uzumaki clan still existed, they had actually been destroyed. It is impossible for Lady Uzumaki Kushina to reproduce alone. He did not associate Yuki Yuichi's red hair with the Uzumaki clan. After all, their surnames were different. One was a child of the Yuhi family, and the other was a member of the Uzumaki clan. You have to know that Uzumaki Kushina is still in Konoha. If Yuki was a member of the Uzumaki clan, he would have been taken back long ago. Ichiko Umino only thought that Yuki Yuichi knew about the Uzumaki clan because they had the same hair color. Sit down, and don't make noises for no reason next time. Yes, Yuki Yuichi sat down, then still supported his chin with one hand and listened to what Umino Ikoku said. He knew most of them, but they sounded much better than the boring will of fire. At least he won't be bored. After Yuki Yuichi sat down, Hotake Kakashi looked back at him, then looked him up and down thoughtfully, and then turned his head away. Yuuki Yuichi didn't care. He never thought of hiding the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan from Kakashi. Hotake and the others just don't let outsiders know. After school in the afternoon, Yuuki just walked out of the school gate and couldn't help stretching. I'm so tired after a day of classes, but today is the easiest day I've had at school. I'm not tired. Zihong touched herself. I think what the teacher said is very interesting. It's not that bad actually. If he didn't have the memory of his past life, Yuuki Yuichi might have listened with great interest, but he is a person with normal values. Most of the things in Will of Fire are praising the third Hokage as the strongest Hokage at the same time. The deeds of those ninjas made him feel uncomfortable, twisted, perverted. This is his understanding of the Will of Fire. He still remembers one of the stories, which tells about a mission in which one of the ninjas was injured and could have returned to the village, but he felt that he was disabled, so he resolutely abandoned his wife, who was 6 months pregnant and was still waiting for him in the village, and went to die, saying that he was covering for his teammates. This incident is in the book The Will of Fire, praising this ninja for having the true ninja way. Thinking of this, Yuuki Yuichi looked at Yuhi Kurenai with a serious expression and whispered in her ear, "Will of Fire, don't even look at it. If you ask, just say you are protecting your companions and the village." He likes such companions. But he doesn't want people like Zihong to become such people. This person has been brainwashed. Intermediate Kurenai Yuhi felt a hot breath from Yuuki, and her face turned red. Although she didn't know why she was not allowed to see the Will of Fire, she still nodded. If Yuichi doesn't like it, she won't watch it, and her father also said not to believe in the Will of Fire. Hey, Yuichi and Hong, long time no see. Minato Namikaze appeared in front of the two of them at some point, and when he heard them whispering in each other's ears, he smiled. "Brother Minato, why are you here?" Upon hearing this, Yuuki Yuichi moved away from Yuhi Kurenai's ear and looked at him curiously. "I came out to relax," Namikaze Minato said, scratching his head. "I'm developing a ninjutsu, but I have no idea how to do it." End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.